Good evening, or I guess it's still afternoon. I would like to call the meeting of the Assembly Committee on Revenue to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Considine. De Silva. Flanagan. Gallant. Goulding. Gray. Hafen. Wynn. O'Neill. Roth. Chair Backus.
And I am present. Please mark Assembly members Roth and Gray absent, excused. With that, I would like to welcome everyone this evening. Just to kind of give you kind of like an agenda for this evening, because I know a lot of folks are just here for the work session. So we will start with the work session this evening, just so that we can free up some seats, even though we have an overflow room right next door. So for those in the overflow room, if some seats open up after the work session, I'll just kind of let you know so you can make your way back. We do have 3 bills on the agenda this evening. We have Assembly Bill 307, which revises provisions governing the taxation of sales of cannabis and cannabis products. Assembly Bill 362, which provides for taxes on the sale of or transfer of a controlling interest in an entity which possesses an interest in real property, and Assembly Joint Resolution 1, which proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to revise certain provisions relating to property taxes. We are going to take these bills out of order. We will start with AJR 1. We'll go to Assembly Bill 362 because I do believe we have someone online that is on the East Coast, and conclude with Assembly Bill 307. So with that, we'll go ahead and open up our work session, starting with Assembly Bill 11, and I will turn it over to Ms. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Backus. Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Legislative Counsel Bureau. The work session document is available to the public on Nellis. Assembly Bill 11 was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Department of Taxation. This bill was heard on February 18, 2025 by this committee. Assembly Bill 11 revises the timeline for the Nevada Department of Taxation to submit its proposed budget and legislation to the Nevada Tax Commission from June of each even-numbered year to January of each odd-numbered year. There were no amendments proposed to this bill. Are there any questions about the work session document?
Members, does anyone have any questions? Nope. With that, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Bill 11.
Do pass Assembly Bill 11?
Second.
I have a first from Vice Chair Considine and a second from Assembly Member Nguyen. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously, and anyone interested in taking the floor statement on that? I'll take that floor statement. I'll put myself on that one. Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and do that. Next in our work session is Assembly Bill 28, so I'll turn that back over to Ms. Power.
Thank you, Chair Backus. Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Legislative Counsel Bureau. The work session document is available to the public on Nellis. Assembly Bill 28 was sponsored by the Committee on Government Affairs on behalf of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. The bill was heard on March 4th, 2025 by this committee. Assembly Bill 28 extends the deadline for the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada to submit recommendations to the Clark County Commission regarding an additional tax on the gross receipts of any retailer for the sale of tangible personal property at retail to fund transportation projects. Originally set for December 31, 2024, the new deadline is December 31, 2028. If the Regional Transportation Commission recommends the tax, the County Commission may submit a question to voters at the next general election, as long as the election occurs no later than the new deadline. There were no amendments proposed to this bill. Are there any questions?
I don't think we have any questions. So I will go ahead and entertain a do pass on Assembly Bill 28. I have a first from Assemblymember De Silva. I have a second from Assemblymember Flanagan. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion carries, and I'll assign the floor statement to Assemblymember De Silva. Next in our work session is Assembly Bill 62, and I'll turn that back over to Ms. Powers to walk us through the bill.
Thank you, Chair Backus. Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. The work session document is available to the public on Nellis. Assembly Bill 62 was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Advisory Committee on Housing. This bill was heard on February 20th, 2025 by this committee. Assembly Bill 62 revises the process for applying for and managing transferable tax credits and adjusts the amount of tax credits available for affordable housing in Nevada. The bill allows land acquisition through long-term ground leases to qualify for tax credits, reduces the final application deadline from 45 to 15 days before the project closure, and clarifies that project sponsors can transfer tax credits to partners or other entities. It also prioritizes reducing carried forward credits before lowering the annual allocation below $10 million, increases the total tax credit cap from the current $40 million to $100 million for all fiscal years, and modifies the expiration timeline to begin when the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry notifies the sponsor of issuance rather than on the actual issuance date. There were no amendments proposed to this bill. Assembly Bill 62 was denoted as being eligible for exemption by the Fiscal Analysis Division on February 10th, 2025. Any questions?
Members, do we have any questions on Assembly Bill 62? With that, I will entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Bill 62.
So moved.
May I have a second? Perfect. I have a first from Assemblymember Nguyen. I have a second from Assemblymember De Silva. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
So I have the two noes are Vice Chair Considine and Assemblymember Hafen. The motion does carry. Since this is one of our bills that will be going to ways, I will go ahead and not assign a floor statement. With that, our next in our work session is Assembly Bill 69, and I will turn it over to Ms. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Backus. Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. The work session document is available to the public on Nellis. Assembly Bill 69 was sponsored by this committee on behalf of Nye County. This bill was heard on February 20th, 2025 by this committee. Assembly Bill 69 removes the prospective expiration date of September 30, 2027 for the Nye County Sales and Use Tax Act of 2007. Allowing the optional sales and use tax rate of up to 0.50% for the funding of public safety by supporting personnel, facility construction, and facility improvements in Nye County to be imposed permanently. A proposed amendment to Assembly Bill 69 was submitted by Mark Fiorentino on behalf of Nye County. The amendment extends the expiration date of October 1, 2027 to October 1, 2047, and requires reauthorization of the rate beyond this date only by a 2/3 majority vote by the Nye County Board of Commissioners. Are there any questions?
Members, do we have any questions? With that, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 69. Thank you. I have a first from Assembly Member Nguyen. I have a second from Assembly Member Hafen. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion unanimously carries with those members present. With that, I'll go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assembly Member Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair.
Next, our work session is Assembly Bill 160. I'll go ahead and turn this over to Ms. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Backus. Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. The work session document is available to the public on Nellis. Assembly Bill 160 was sponsored by Assembly Members Yeager and O'Neill. This bill was heard on March 6, 2025 by this committee. Assembly Bill 160 creates the Nevada-Ireland Trade Commission to strengthen economic, academic, and cultural ties between Nevada and Ireland and to promote bilateral trade, investment, joint policy collaboration, and business and academic exchanges while fostering economic cooperation and infrastructure investment between Nevada and Ireland. The bill additionally creates the account for the Nevada-Ireland Trade Commission in the State General Fund to carry out the provisions of this act. Money in the account must not revert to the State General Fund at the end of any fiscal year. There is an amendment, and the amendment adds Assemblymember Gray as a co-sponsor to Assembly Bill 160. Assembly Bill 160 was denoted as being eligible for exemption by the Fiscal Analysis Division on February 20th, 2025. Are there any questions?
Members, I don't think anyone had any questions. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
Second.
I have a first from Assembly Member O'Neill and a second from Vice Chair. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'll go to Assembly Member Hafen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have some concerns with the fiscal note. However, since it'll end up in ways, that is where I'll have those conversations. So I will be voting this out of committee, but wanted to reserve my right. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll go to Assembly Member O'Neill next.
Chair, thank you for the time. In response to the question from my cohort, it's my understanding that the fiscal note has been removed from the bill itself. Money will be derived from various sources, including nonprofits, but donations, basically, and then it will be self-funding eventually, if that makes a difference to your vote at all. Thank you, Chair.
I will still vote it out of committee, and I will get with the bill sponsors to clarify that. Thank you. And thank you for the clarification.
Thank you both. With that, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion unanimously carries for those that are present today, and I'll assign the floor statement to Assemblymember O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair.
Next, our work session is Assembly Bill 277. I will turn it back over to Ms. Powers.
Thank you, Chair Backus. Susanna Powers, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Legislative Council Bureau. The work session document is available to the public on Nellis. Assembly Bill 277 was sponsored by Assembly Members DeLong and Gurr. This bill was heard on March 18, 2025 by this committee. Assembly Bill 277 amends the confidentiality provisions in Chapter 360 of the Nevada Revised Statutes to authorize the disclosure of information related to the Department of Taxation's computation of the gross yield and net proceeds for all minerals extracted in Nevada. There were no amendments proposed to this bill. Are there any questions?
Members, do we have any questions? I do just want to make a note. It is mining day in the building, and I did not know that when I scheduled this for a work session, but it seemed very appropriate. With that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Bill 277.
Second.
I have a first from Assemblymember Nguyen, a second from Vice Chair Considine. Are there any discussions regarding the motion? With that, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously for those present, and I will go ahead and assign the floor statement to Assemblymember DeLong. Thank you. And with that, we have now concluded our work session this evening. So please, anyone that was here for the work session, please feel free to leave if you want to, or you can stay for our nice lengthy hearing for the next 3 bills. But always, even though we do have 3 bills, we'll try to expedite those 3 bills as best as we can. And so I would ask those presenting bills tonight to do a presentation of 15 minutes if you can. Likewise, we'll go ahead and do about 10 minutes of questions. And then for support, opposition, and neutral, we'll do 10 minutes each. And I'll try to circulate between Las Vegas, Carson City, and the phone lines so that we can get as many people testifying. And people can use up a lot of time, or if you're just repeating other people and you want to show big numbers, you can always feel free to say ditto. So with that, I will go ahead and open up the hearing for Assembly Joint Resolution 1, and I will welcome Assemblymember Anderson and her entourage up, and feel free to begin when you're ready. I know you have a PowerPoint, so get that all geared up.
Good afternoon, Chair Bacchus, Vice Chair Considine, and members of the Revenue Committee. It's nice to be back home, even if it's just a small visit. I've had an opportunity to serve on this committee the last 2 sessions, and I miss it. So thank you so much for this opportunity to present AJR 1. My name is Nathan Anderson. It is my honor to represent Assembly District 30. I am joined today by Dylan Shaver, Managing Partner of Pinion Affairs. I want to make sure it's clear that I have amended AGR 1 to remove the proposed Section 12 of the initial bill. This was done after lengthy conversations, and it is only one decision to be made at the in regards to this topic. It's one decision, so that way when the voters have a chance to look at it, it's only the one item. It is not both. And that decision was made after numerous conversations around a variety of issues, including sometimes the one topic, one question decision that has been made with some other, I guess, proposed questions that when they come up on the ballot. AGR 1 is based on a bill originally brought forward by former Senator Julia Ratty, who also represented Sparks, the same area, or the Truckee Meadows area of Nevada. AGR 1 is attempting to address the structural deficit that is faced by city and county governments and school districts. We've all seen the finger pointing and blame game of why something's not working. The reality, however, our calculations, the method that we use, creates a hole in the bottom of the bucket. These calculations of property taxes are complex, cumbersome, not efficiently used, and more importantly, not meeting the needs of our local communities. Nevada is the only state in the nation that applies depreciation to, as defined in NRS 361.227, our property taxes by utilizing this practice. The Constitution declares we must have a uniform and equal system of taxation. AGR 1 is trying to address this issue by asking voters to amend the Constitution to reset the depreciation clock of the physical structures when property is sold to a new owner. I would like to hand it over to Dylan Shaver, who will walk you through some very specifics around property taxes in Nevada, as well as show you a very clear example of 2 houses that there are in this community today. Mr. Shaver?
Thank you so much, Chair Bacchus, members of the committee, for the record, Dylan Shaver with Pinion Public Affairs, here today on behalf of New Day, Nevada. More critically, though, the reason you have me at this table is I spent 10 years in this building talking to this committee about mining taxes, and I took a brief pause from that to be on the executive team at the city of Reno. And so I've had the opportunity to experience property taxes from both the payer side as well as the recipient side of things. And to the chair's point earlier, as a longtime member of Chair Anderson's entourage, I think was the word that was used, I am here before you today. From a very high level, I do not pretend to be a foremost expert in property taxes, and so I had my 7-year-old son put together this slide for me that just sort of gives us the very high-level view of the way property tax depreciation works in Nevada. As the chair said, the Constitution, Article 10, requires this body to impose a uniform and equal system of property taxation and assessment, and the way that we have decided that through NRS 361 is to essentially take the assessed value of a piece of property, which you get your assessment record in the mail every year, and then multiply that by 35%, by 0.35. That becomes the taxable value of the property. We then take the depreciation of the structures on that property at the rate of 1.5% a year, and then finally multiply that by the tax rate, which is capped at 3.64%. So if I had a whiteboard here, we'd just show the whole equation, but the easier way to do it is just to picture a home valued at $100,000. The taxes due on that home after applying all the multipliers would be $1,274. If that home at 25 years keeps that same fair market value, of course it doesn't, but again, we're just trying to make the math simple here. The value of that home depreciates at 1.5% a year, so at 25 years, its value is depreciated 37.5%, and then the taxes due become $864.50. Doesn't matter what the market value is when you go to sell it. That depreciation kicks in like it would just, for example, for your vehicle. And then finally, after 50 years, that property becomes what you would consider fully depreciated. It has lost 75% of its taxable value, and the taxes due on that property would be $455. Now, the way this plays out in the real world, my team at Pinion pulled some real estate listings just a few days ago. 102 North Curry Street, just a couple of blocks from here, is a mansion. It was built in 1873. It is a beautiful home. It's also on the market for $2.4 million. I see a couple of school teachers, a public interest attorney, a retiree. If we all pooled together, we could get in there, but it is valued at $2.4 million. It is very well preserved. It is a historic landmark in this town, to be sure. It is 3,500 square feet. On the market, like I said, $2.4 million. Its assessed value, about $75,000. By comparison, 4283 Knobloch Road. Again, a Carson City address. I don't know the town well enough as Assemblymember O'Neill, so I could not really tell you what part of town that's in, but it is certainly new development. It was built in 2022. It is a starter home. It is just shy of 2,000 square feet, and its assessed value is $84,720. So the structure on these properties, one, a mansion built in 1873, the other a starter home with 5 other homes just like it on the same street, have a flipped value under the current laws of the state. The land value, of course, comes into play. We do not appreciate the land value in Nevada, so we focus just on the structure here, just like on the previous side where we sort of broke that into two. And are you this next one or am I? Okay, great. No, it's fine. It is that challenge, that depreciation that ends up creating pretty significant holes and gaps in services at the local level that really cannot be resolved. And we'll talk about those a little bit more later on in the presentation. And in 2017, the legislature, you all in a previous incarnation commissioned a study on what this looked like for the state and the 400-some taxing jurisdictions across the state, and it came out with this book, which the assembly member has outlined in Nellis. And with the chair's permission, we're just going to go through page by page. I promise it'll only take about okay, we're not going to read the book, but you can see every taxing district in the state, and this goes to the East Fork Pool District in Douglas County, to the city of Las Vegas, to all of our schools. And it shows a pretty significant impact. Solving this problem, this book tells a story of the problems that you hear in this building session after session after session. Again, the gaps in funding that could help solve those problems that really we have painted ourselves into a corner in a way that is very difficult to get out of. And that's what this bill is here to help solve.
Thank you, Dylan. Nathan Anderson for the record. In this next area, we're going to talk a little bit about depreciation and structural unfairness, but before doing so, for those of us that either were able to attend or were able to watch the Ways and Means meeting on March 25th, we saw what happened to our state during the recession of 2008. And I've got to, before going forward, I've got to give, again, a big shout out to Mr. Nakamoto for that work. I'm sure that everybody on this committee would have loved it as well. The policy wonks and us were like, oh my gosh, look at this next. But that incredible information that was provided showed that our state went through a crisis, a financial crisis. But it was not just our state. The information that Mr. Nakamoto provided was about our state. But our cities and counties, they went through the same recession. You'll see in front of you that based upon, and I think this has to do a little bit with Mr. Shaver's background in the city of Reno, there was plans to try to do something about the Moana Pool in the 2008-2009 timeframe. It had to be closed because of that recession. We finally, and those of us that are in Reno, recognize the fact that we might only have one or two parks that actually have a pool because of these budget constraints. The site was redeveloped and finally opened in the summer of 2024. I recognize that in our world of being locked in this building of happiness, we don't always get a chance to actually go out to the pool. But think about if you're a 6-year-old. Think about if you're a 4-year-old or an 8-year-old and it's summer and how free that pool was. I can tell you right now that as we're working through some of the things happening with the computer, but I can tell you about what happened in my wonderful little town of Sparks, where I learned how to swim, was at Opio Pool. Opio Pool no longer exists. That pool had to be closed, and it was right around the same time frame. But there's other depreciations as well that occurred that I kind of want to just walk through really quickly. As Dylan mentioned, the study really goes much deeper. And again, if you want us to go through it, because as you can tell I have, and that poor thing's probably falling apart. But you can see on this slide the statewide effects of the depreciation. But I'm just going to point out one or two items. The statewide school operating expense rate. There's a possible increase of $3.1 billion over the period of 12 years. That's not just one time. That's over the period of 12 years. But think about how different both this body as well as the school districts would be able to handle that. Since the time of the study, we have changed how we fund our schools, but what we have not changed is the source of those fundings. It continues to be primarily property taxes. And again, it was very difficult to figure out exactly which areas to highlight, but I've just pulled a few in the interest of time. First, if we could go to the next slide, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection. For those of us that are in the northern area, you know that we just went through the Davis Fire. As you drive back and forth, you can still see the scars from that. If we had had this, there's a possibility of $55 million more. If you go to Clark County and you take a look at family courts, that's not everything in Clark County. That's just family courts, $67 million. Carson City Senior Citizen Services, $1.5 million. Nye County Health Clinic, $495,000. Lyon County Juvenile Center, $2.3 million. Genoa Town, the oldest town in Nevada and probably the best place to go to the bar. Oh, sorry. Sorry, just wish I was there right now. Would see an increase of $213,000. And finally, my hometown is Sparks. Instead of bringing up the information, though, I'd like to point out Mayor Lawson's comments. And Mayor Lawson is here today. The Constitution of the state of Nevada has the most regressive property tax system in the United States. It can only go up 3% a year. And if your house is less than 50 years old, it can only go up 1.5%. I challenge anyone to run a business on that increase. The current system creates an unfair advantage for investors, not for everyday citizens. It creates this advantage for investors. They are able to have that weak tax base they weaken the tax base for everyday property owners. The proposals in AJR 1 would create a fairer tax system by adjusting property depreciations after transfer. This change enhances local services without raising tax rates and would provide more stability. In closing, I would just like to go through the process of how this would work. I think you guys can look through the need for reform on your own, but I do quickly want to just remind you I'm a civics teacher, so I was totally getting into the whole how does this work thing. And I'm so excited because I never get a chance to talk about direct democracy versus representative democracy, and today I do. So thank you so much for letting me get into that geeky world. So the process, first, we're going to use representative democracy. And that's what's happening today with the representatives hearing this idea. The representatives getting a chance to vote on it in the 2025 legislative body. It has to go through a second time, again with representative democracy, where again it would be a legislative hearing. It would again go through the legislative process. But then it gets to go into direct democracy, where the voters make the decision. It's up to the registered voters in 2028. And then it would come to 2029, where we could define some other issues. Maybe the terms like transfer, the sale items, those very specific things that, as opposed to the idea of it, which is in our Constitution by then we can look at the specifics. Basically, the timeline gives us not only a chance to exercise both forms of democracy, but also time to go into how to define these items. So although I know Assemblymember Gallant believes that I take forever, I did cut it down, although I wanted to go into more because let me tell you, I've got a lot of other things flagged. And we've got the book. But at this time, Chair, we're ready for any questions your committee might have. And again, I'd like to thank you for this time.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's so funny. I always question whether I want to do PowerPoints, but I love the picture, so I appreciate the visual walking through us through your bill. With that, we'll go ahead and I will start with Vice Chair Considine.
Thank you, Chair. How does this constitutional amendment, if it does get passed, affect the cost of home ownership?
Thank you so much for the question. Nathan Anderson, for the record, it does not. It does not cost the individual who is currently in their home. It will not cost them at all. What will happen instead is the individual, when they are preparing to buy a house, will have, or a property, will have an idea of what the tax will be at that time. So then that way they can create that budget a little bit better and more accurately. And then I didn't know if you wanted to add to that, or I am not an economist, but I want to make sure that I had that right.
Dylan Shaver, again, for the record, mostly just chiming in that I don't want them to think I'm an economist either. But to the chair's point, since I did turn on the microphone, certainly at that point of sale, the depreciation clock would restart. And realistically, that's just how property value works under state law, and really in any sort of market analysis. The value of a thing is what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller, and that ends up being over time baked into the price of the home at purchase and then throughout its lifespan.
We'll go with Assemblymember Gallant. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm looking at these numbers, and it looks like we would collect more money across the state, which tells me that homeowners will be paying more in property taxes across the state. And so we are having an issue with the price of housing, with workforce housing, with first-time home buyers. And so how is this going to be beneficial for all of those constituents that would really like to be able to get into a house and are currently struggling with the prices? How is that going to work with increasing their property taxes even further?
I can make that pretty easily. Thank you so much for the question, Chair Bacchus and members of the committee. Again, Dylan Shaver for the record. As we said at the top, right, that gets baked into the sale just like an interest rate or anything else would, which then reflexively works on the price. We see historically, and you can go back 100 years and look at this, and you would know better than I, that the lower interest rate, you're going to get a higher market value on the house itself. Higher interest rate, that's going to go down. Home values right now are really happening in a place that is askew from all of these conversations, and I think anybody would question whether this body has the ability to make them move up or down. Certainly, yes, absolutely. The state and these services would collect more taxes in the long run, and that, however, is measured against the community that those homes are in. And just I neglected to include in the original PowerPoint, if that community were Boulder City, for example, it would mean an additional $6.2 million for Boulder City parks, art programs, recreation, or senior centers, what have you. Similarly, the Boulder City Library over those 12 years would be $3.32 million to the good after a measure like this were to pass.
In addition to that, Assemblymember Anderson, for the record, I do appreciate the question because it is something that is concerning. How do we do this? But one of the issues that we're also facing, especially in our two largest populous areas, we're running out of land. And so what is happening is our cities and counties, for them to be able to continue to provide the services, the essential services, the police, the fire, in some areas, the hospitals, the parks, the schools, they have to figure out, how am I going to get this money now? And so what are they doing? Sadly, they're expanding further and further and further. We're running out of land. And until we start recognizing that part of the issue is not just the land issue, it's also the fact that we are holding the hands of our counties and cities, telling them, you have to build to fill up this hole so that we have police and fire ready to go, so we have those essential services, because that budget matters, and so that's what they're being forced to do.
Thank you for another bite at the apple. Chair Bacchus, again, Dylan Shaver for the record. This is where my municipal governance nerd hat comes into play, because I think if there's something we have seen over time is that the cost of municipal services, and that we can call it what it is, it's sewer services, it's public works like roads and facilities, it's police and it's fire. The cost of those things continue to rise. The cost of labor continues to rise. We are all aware of this. The thing that funds all of that is property taxes, which is linked to a ticking clock that ticks ever downward. So naturally, as the cost of these services increase for our local governments, they have no choice but to pare them back. One of the larger issues that I have or had when I was at the city of Reno, at the time, they did not have police substations like you do in southern Nevada. So you're relying on essentially a rolling dispatch model where cars are all over the place. You've been to Reno, you fly in and out every week, many of you, and something you see there is the airport that then police cruisers, if there's something on the other side of the airport, have to go all the way around because there's no substation to dispatch from on that side of the airport. You see these same challenges with like the closure of fire stations, the closure of municipal pools, because particularly in a recessionary case, that clock ticks downwards, and then because of the caps enacted in 2005 through this building that changes the way the bills can grow back up, they do not have the ability to then climb out of those holes that even the state would have, or certainly not a business would have.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Assemblymember De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about a provision that this resolution is calling for. So the creation of a program to provide property tax refunds for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Could you explain how you envision that playing out with the passage of this resolution? Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Anderson, that is unfortunately what I had to amend out. That was after lengthy discussions with numerous individuals around it. It was something that I wished to be able to continue on with. However, after some lengthy discussions, including with members of LCB Legal who told me it was okay, but after other discussions, I made a decision that it was better to concentrate on one issue and only one issue, and that would be the depreciation issue. The other issue is also very important. We've had in other legislation in the past, and so I am planning on studying it for a further discussion if I'm fortunate enough to come back to be able to bring forward something. And then I believe it's Mr. Shaver remembered that NRS 361 continues to have provisions to help vets and folks in hardships that do allow for that. But this was one of the difficult decisions I had to make to amend something out.
And just a clarity, some of the stuff like you were talking about, amending out the hardships for vets, we've seen this session a lot of bills regarding abatements. Abatements are something we can do as a legislative body, and we don't need to do a constitutional amendment. Is that accurate?
Nathan Anderson, for the record, that is what I understand. Legal might have a little bit more information around that, but from what I understand, abatement is able to be done legislatively. This constitutional change is making sure that direct democracy, hey, civics teacher, is able to be encouraged, and voters are able to go to the poll to let people know how they feel.
Thank you so much. With the next, we'll go to a question from Assemblymember Haven.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Assemblymember and Mr. Shaver, for presenting. I'll catch you offline and talk about your definition of a starter home versus not. I live in Nye County, so that's a mansion in Nye County. So, but I want to make sure that I understand everything correctly. On your slideshow, I believe you're projecting to raise taxes by $13.3 billion. And then you mentioned something that I wasn't able to get confirmed, and I was hoping you could confirm that. I apologize, there's no page numbers on here. But on the slide that referred to Nye County, their health clinic, $495,000. Could you clarify where that came from? I was not able to get confirmation from my good friend Google on what that actually was.
Thank you, Assemblymember Anderson, for the record, and thank you for the question. First of all, we are not raising taxes. I want to make sure that's clear. It is being looked at in a different way. It is being calculated in a different way. The second, we were able to find that information out of the study that was commissioned again in 2017 by a bill that now we're looking for on this. However, it was done by Applied Analysis and was provided to the LCB, or LCB, Legislative Council Bureau, is the one that actually has that contract with it, and that is where it's coming from. That is where we were able to find that information. It is on, were you able to find it? We're still looking for it, but I do know it's there because I remember looking at it. We were able to find the Nye County Medical Fund. It's on page 290 and 294. So the Nye County Medical Health Clinic, 2025 have, so right, we've got $51,000, and then if you combine that with the page 294 of the same study, it would be combined with that information that is present on it. And this 375-page document is also found on Nellis.
So, just to dig a little bit deeper, if I may, again, Dylan Shaver for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Hafen. Yeah, so essentially the way the study was conducted was they just took an overarching view of every taxing district in the state, technically from the state perspective. Your property tax bill, when you get it, will show 15 or so different taxing districts, and they're different county by county. And so we just sort of pulled those two, and the reason I did, while I'm not super well versed in all 375 of the taxing districts, is that I think you and I both share a concern about the access to healthcare, particularly around Tonopah. But there's just simply not, there's not enough space or dollars to keep a clinic open for a long time. I know that private industry is coming forward time to try and find ways to make things work, which is why we highlighted those numbers. But again, those are just taxing districts within the county.
Thank you for that. And if you could send me those pages, that would be great. And I know, Assembly Member, you don't want to call it a tax, but at the end of the day, it's going to generate an additional $13.3 billion to the state and increase the individual homeowners' taxes. I understand that you're proposing to restructure the current tax, and so it's not a quote-unquote new tax, but it is an increase to the general public and the homeowners. So respectfully disagree with you on that. Thank you.
And I just have one kind of clarity. So as I understand your guys' bill, is if I'm in my current home and I choose to live in my current home for the next 50 years, I could benefit from the depreciation for the next 50 years. So I would not have an increase. Well, it all depends because obviously different things, but the resetting wouldn't apply to someone who's already in their house. It would be upon the sale. And so the visual that you showed with the $2.4 million mansion, that right now is benefiting from its 50-year appreciation. But if this law were to pass down by the voters of Nevada in 2028, at that such time, then that would be a reset situation. Am I understanding that correctly?
Thank you so much for the question. Again, Dylan Shaver, yes, you got it spot on. If you chose to stay where you are, you, me, anybody in this committee, nothing would change about their tax bill. The new owner would, the depreciation would reset more or less at the value that they bought the home for, and then it would continue to tick down over time. The other clarification I wanted to make is the $3 billion figure being bantied about. We want to make very clear that study looks at 12 years. Yeah, it is not an instantaneous one-time sort of infusion that happens every year or biennium.
Thank you for that clarity. I know I had heard you say that at the beginning when you were doing those numbers, but thank you for repeating that for everyone here. With that, we appreciate your presentation. We're going to go ahead and move on to testimony in support, opposition, and neutral. Just want to let people know, when you signed in, I've been keeping track. There's been 20 people that signed in support in our various locations. I don't know about the phone line. I really would love to keep this to 10 minutes, but of course I will always give equal time to those in support and opposition. One thing is you can always send an email to our committee. There is a link on our Nellis website, and such letter will be posted on the website on Nellis, and we'll know that. We'll keep that open for 24 hours. So if you don't get the opportunity to speak in support, opposition, or in neutral, you can always submit it in writing. So with that, let's go ahead and start with whoever got up there first and we'll zigzag through it. Thank you.
Throwing a coin here. Good afternoon. My name's Dawn Echeverry, President of the Nevada State Education Association, the voice of educators in Nevada for 125 years in all 17 counties. I am here today in strong support of AJR 1 because it represents a critical step towards fully funding our public schools. In 2019, recognizing the overwhelming need of the Nevada classrooms, the legislature created the Commission on School Funding to develop a plan to reach optimal educational funding within a decade. The commission has done its job, presented a clear research-based strategy to close the multi-billion-dollar gap between what we spend now and what our students actually need. Even after record investments last session, Nevada still lags in national average by more than $4,000 per student. To keep pace with the plan, we need to increase per pupil funding by about $700 each year of the upcoming biennium, requiring an additional $600 million. Yet the governor's budget recommendations fall flat, increasing base funding by just $2 per pupil next year. That's not enough to cover raising costs, let alone move our schools forward. The commission carefully analyzed Nevada's tax structure and determined that modernizing our property tax system, specifically fixing depreciation on the point of sales, is one of the only viable solutions. A nearly identical proposal from 2017 would have generated an additional $330 million for school operations and $240 million in capital funds this year alone. This one change could contribute to over $500 million to school operation budgets. Passing AJR 1 honors the work of the Commission and moves us closer to fully funding our school. Failing to act means Nevada students, educators, and families will remain stuck in chronically underfunded classrooms. I urge your support for AJR 1. Pass the plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Todd Inglesby, President of Professional Firefighters Nevada. I just want to thank the Assembly member for bringing this forward. I think the work she's done on this, I think speaks for itself. The presentation was great. I myself, I don't like to pay for anything I don't have to either. But the fact is, we got to invest in ourselves. We got to invest in our communities, and to do that, that's what this does. And I think that's what we should all be here thinking about today. And this is what the legislation is all about. Thank you.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kalen Evans, and I'm the president of the Washoe Education Association. We represent all of the certified professionals in the Washoe County School District. I want to thank the Assemblywoman for bringing this bill forward. And let's be blunt, Nevada is the only state in the nation using a property tax formula based on the replacement cost. Every other state has moved on, and for good reason. They understand how regressive and frankly absurd this approach is. It shields the wealthiest property owners and starves the public services our communities rely on. This system was sold with the promise of housing affordability, but that promise has unraveled. Nevada ranks second in the nation for cost-burdened renters and fifth for homeowners spending with more than 35% of their income on housing. The loopholes didn't lower costs, they weakened the systems meant to support us. Nowhere is that more obvious than in education. Clark and Washoe County are both in the bottom 5% of districts funded nationwide, and we have the largest class sizes in the country. These aren't just statistics, these are signs that we are failing the next generation. We don't have to choose between fair taxation and affordable housing. We can do both. While AJR 1 corrects an outdated tax system, we can reduce housing costs through smart deregulation, faster permitting, more flexible zoning, and pre-approved designs that lower construction costs, all without sacrificing funding for our schools and infrastructure. Strong schools and safe communities don't happen by accident. They require investment, and a fair tax system is how we get there. Thank you.
Hello. For the record, my name is Susan Kaiser, Kaiser. I'm urging you to pass the plan proposed by the Commission on School Funding, which would increase per pupil funding in Nevada to the national average over 10 years. Since this commission was established, 4 classes of high school graduates have finished their public school education. Meanwhile, the plan remains in limbo. Even though a large appropriation was made to education during the 23 legislative session, funding remains inadequate. Recently, I served on a jury with a math teacher from DePaul Middle School, and during our brief chats, I learned her story. She had to move into a larger community space in her building because she has 2 sections of combined 7-8 math with 40 students. Her classroom was not big enough to accommodate 40 desks. Her total number of students is 220. This situation is unmanageable if the expectation is that her students gain math proficiency. She was concerned about missing 6 school days while the trial lingered and trying to help the substitute manage from far away. However, her real stress stemmed from not enough time to assess which students needed more help, which skills they were struggling with, and how she was simply going to make it to June. Increased funding would change this scenario. I taught for 20 years at Pine Middle School, and during that time I witnessed changes in curriculum, in the larger number of students assigned to my classes, and the stressful tests increasing for my students. However, during that time, I never saw investment of consistent, adequate, and long-term funding needed for our public schools. This funding matters for our students' future flourishing. AJR 1 is the next step in generating revenue to pass and execute the plan. Our students' futures are, in essence, the future of Nevada. I urge you to pass AJR 1. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Cassie Charles, and I'm the political representative for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. I'm here in strong support of AJR 1. Given our current and likely future state budget deficits, this is good common sense legislation to bolster and increase state revenue by addressing the current property tax loophole. AJR 1 levels the playing field so that working families aren't subsidizing corporate tax breaks. And it does this without raising current rates. And in my personal capacity, as a recent home buyer of a 50-year-old home, I personally do not mind the restructuring of my own taxes, knowing that it's going towards public services and public employees. We would like to thank the sponsor for this bill, Assemblymember Anderson, for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Ed Lawson, City of Sparks. I'm going to make my comments brief, but let me just explain this to you. In the last 5 years, our expenses have gone up 54% at the City of Sparks. Our income has gone up 16%. I challenge any of you to run any kind of government or business or anything with those kind of numbers. And so this is why this is needed. I've been down here speaking about this since 2011 when I first got elected, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere with it. I would love to see something happen here. It is literally for the City of Sparks. It's we have to grow or die. Now we are landlocked, so we have 3,000 more home lots to build, and we're consuming those at about 600 per year. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we are out of land to build homes. Now we have to build up, which means things get more and more expensive. And unfortunately, Assemblymember, $550 is below the average median price in Washoe County. It's over $600,000 now, and it's crazy. So with that, I think that's the most poignant thing, is that our expenses are increasing so fast that we can't keep up. We're budgeting a 4% increase. We got a 9% increase from PERS. That was over $3 million. One of the things you have in Clark County that we don't have in the north is you have a sales tax that supports Metro Police. We don't have that. We fund that directly out of our property taxes. So it makes it a little more comfortable. That went into effect in 1972. I was 12 years old in Las Vegas then, but I want to thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, and I hate to break up the good flow here in Carson City. I almost said Sparks. I'm in Carson City. I'm going to go to Las Vegas and take some supporting testimony. So whoever's sitting up there, please feel free to begin.
Good evening, Alexander Marks of the Nevada State Education Association. I've actually got a copy of the plan for optimal funding. It's thick, but it's a fantastic read. And I'd like to read from around page 16 to really emphasize why AJR 1 is needed. Rather than identifying a new source of funding, increasing current tax rates, or targeting single industry taxes, the Commission preferred to examine the Nevada tax system as a means of adjusting the way taxes are collected or managed improving the efficiency of the tax base and maximizing economic and social benefits. The Commission determined that a nearer-term focus on broader-based property taxes and sales use would be best satisfy the adopted revenue principles. Therefore, the Commission's identification process for sufficient, predictable, and equitable funding sources concentrated on existing excise and property. As noted, there are only two sources of tax revenues that have the capacity to achieve the identified levels of annual funding increases over time: property and sales. While other taxes can certainly be considered to complement or supplement, the revenue demands to achieve the targeted levels of funding in the coming decade would not be achievable without significant contributions from the capacity that exists from the property and sales tax systems. It's also notable that 10 states in the U.S. with the highest amount of per pupil funding basis rely upon property taxes as the primary source of funding for education. Property tax has also historically been one of Nevada's principal methods of funding education, as have revenues from sales. That says it best. So if you believe in public education funding, you should be supporting AJR 1. When we say pass the plan, AJR 1 represents a large portion of that property tax provision and recommendation. It's not everything we should be doing, but it's part of what the Commission on School Funding has recommended. And by fiscal year 29, resetting depreciation would net school operating budgets more than $500 million. Trust the Commission on School Funding, pass the plan, support AJR 1. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Bacchus and members of the Revenue Committee. My name is Christian Solomon, Christian. I'm the West Regional Director of RISE, and RISE is a proud member of the New Day Nevada Revenue Coalition. I want to thank Assemblymember Anderson for introducing this legislation. I'm speaking enthusiastically in favor of AJR 1 because protecting current and future Nevada homeowners is essential to saving the prospect of homeownership for young people. Like many Gen Zers, I grew up with parents who lost their home during the 2008 recession because rich corporate forces preyed upon them during the subprime mortgage crisis. It's due to major events like this that many young people live in anxiety of how much these corporate forces actually run our country and whether or not the American dream is actually within reach for us. This was also made abundantly clear last year when hedge fund property hawks last year spent $1 billion to purchase wholesale neighborhoods, leaving most of us to wonder if we'll ever be able to purchase a house or even rent a decent property as rent hikes increase. AJR 1 counters this unfair advantage by ensuring working class homeowners are not subsidizing lower tax rates for long-held properties to the wealthy, as well as investors that have thrown Nevada into a housing crisis. This will also supplement our state's revenue to pay for education, infrastructure, and emergency services by ensuring our property revenue doesn't erode over time. Corporate landlords do not need another tax loophole that they can hold over the heads of everyday working Nevadans. I urge you to support AJR 1. Thank you.
Thank you. And just kind of keeping the timeline, if there's anyone else in Las Vegas, to get through people, okay, there's no one else in Las Vegas. To get through people here, we're going to come back to Carson City and then I'll go to the phone line. But in Carson City, if you could just state your name and the group you represent, if there's more than you in your group, have folks stand up so we can just get through everyone to show the people that are here in support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kelly McNeil, MCNEIL, Executive Director of the Nevada League of Cities. AJR 1 seeks to provide local governments with the flexibility necessary to address unique fiscal challenges while ensuring taxpayer protections remain in place. Allowing adjustments to property tax provisions such as those proposed in AJR 1 can help stabilize municipal revenues, ensuring consistent funding is available for vital services such as public safety, education, parks, and critical infrastructure. Revising outdated tax provisions can lead to fairer distribution of tax burdens and benefits, fostering equity among Nevada residents, while also promoting more effective and efficient governance. The Nevada League of Cities urges the committee to support this resolution, paving the way for a more adaptable and predictable fiscal environment across our state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With all due respect, let me repeat myself again. For those, so I can get people in support and get most people through here, we have 3 big bill hearings tonight. If you can say who you are and what group you support and that you're in support, like comments, we can submit in writing just so we can get through support testimony, and I will give equal time to opposition. I'm keeping time right now. Thank you so much.
Amy Payson, AMY PASON, and I am here for the Nevada Faculty Alliance, and we support AJR 1. Thank you.
I'm Christine Whistle. I am a high school special education teacher in Washoe County. I'm part of the Washoe Education Association, and I also am strongly in support of AJR1. Our schools desperately need it. Anyone else from WEA here? Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Drew Franklin, DREW-FRANKLIN. I'm a teacher at Innovations High School in Reno, Nevada. I'm a member of the Washoe Education Association and an ambassador for the Nevada State Education Association. I'm in strong support of this bill. We need some way to help pass this pan and pay for it. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Riley Svensson, RYLEY-SVENDSEN, with the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. Representing our 14 program members, we are in strong support of this bill, as revenue is violence prevention and intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Tanager. For the record, I'm the director of the Sierra Club's Toyabe chapter. We're in strong support of HAR1 so we can support and fund our public lands and manage the climate crisis adequately. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Mindy Elliott, representing the Nevada Housing Coalition. What we like about this the best, everyone gets a chance to vote. We appreciate Assemblywoman Anderson providing this piece of legislation, and we strongly support.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. Isaac Hardy, representing the Urban Consortium, which is made up of Reno, Sparks, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. We're in support of this AGR1. Thank you.
Alexis Motorex with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, ditto.
Ross Ginson, Teamsters 533, and Northern Nevada Central Labor Council, on behalf of all of our members, ditto.
Good afternoon, Chair, and members of the committee. Bill Brewer, Nevada Rural Housing. We are here in support of this bill. Appreciate all of the comments and support, and ditto all of that.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jackie Spicer. I represent the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. We are here in support of AGR1. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Brian Wachter, Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of Nevada. I apologize, ma'am. I'm going to take 2 seconds just because I think this is a different perspective than you've had. From the Retail Association standpoint, when local governments can't raise their revenue through these traditional methods, they end up doing things like raising licensing fees by 13,000% or 1,200%. So we feel that this will bring the system into a modern point, and we urge its passage.
Sarah Adler, good afternoon. Northern Nevada Coalition of Small Charter Schools, who are in full support of this measure. And if we can raise property tax, we can lower sales tax, perhaps, which is the most regressive form of taxation.
Thank you. And I just kind of want to note, I know about like 8 people stood up in addition for the WEA behind here. With that, let's go to AVH. AVH, is there anyone on the phone line wishing to give testimony in support of AJR1? And once again, I would just ask if you can state your name. This is going to be weird because you're on the phone line. Spell it and just provide the group you're with. We are more than happy to take written comments to tell us how much you like the bill and like why you like it, and we can look at that on Nellis as well as everyone else. We appreciate that this evening if you do that.
To testify in support for AJR1, please press *9 to take your place in the queue.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Paula Luna, Paula-Luna. I'm the Deputy Director of Battleborn Progress, and we would like to ditto the arguments in support of this bill. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, committee chair and members. My name is Luisa Benasano. For the record, LuizaVenisano. I am the Campaigns and Community Engagement Manager for Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada, and we support AJR1. Thank you. Hello, my name is Misty Olmos, MISTYOLMOS. I am Secretary Treasurer for ESEA in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am a Director for NSEA. I am in support of HAR1. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tara Webster, TARAWEBSTER. I'm the Policy Manager with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. On behalf of PLAN, we enthusiastically urge your support for HAR1.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in support for AJR1, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no more callers choosing to testify in support.
Thank you so much. And so we will go ahead and open up testimony here in Carson City for opposition. And I will obviously give equal time for opposition that we had for support. So go ahead, Ms. Hanson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm here representing Nevada Families for Freedom. According to the Institute for Policy Innovation in the United States, the total U.S. tax burden, including federal, state, local taxes, and hidden taxes, is equal to more than 56% of annual personal consumption spending. 56% is more than a person spends on housing, food, health care, transportation, education, and recreation. How can people possibly take care of themselves and our families when government takes 56% of our income? We heard from Assemblyman Hafen that it would cost over 12 years $13.3 billion. This money will come out of the productive community and go into the government community, which doesn't make any money. And therefore, what we want is not more government. We want lower taxes, and more government and more taxes is not the answer to our problems. Citizens need lower taxes so they can take care of themselves and their own problems and not rely on government. Every day I'm here, I hear about more socialist programs that are going to save our state. What we need is less programs, less taxes, and we will be able to take care of ourselves. This is the problem continually with raising it. All the additional money will be taken out of the productive community and put in the non-productive community. Families are chronically underfunded because of taxation. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Gianna Jacks, GIANNAJACKS. I am a resident of Washoe County. I am here in opposition of AJ1 for the reasons that we are already in a current, quote, severe structural deficit, according to the Washoe County Commission. The Washoe County total budget is about 80% is salaries. Washoe County cannot afford any more tax increase on our citizens. We are already at a high budget. Our county manager makes more than the Clark County manager. We have an extreme budget in Washoe County, and I'm opposed to this bill. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Tangonan, Tangonan. Members of our group were able to listen to parts of the Tuesday's Ways and Means hearing. In no part of that particular presentation was any prospect of cutting costs and decreasing revenue mentioned. This is an important note for residents and taxpayers. Taxes like gas, insurance, sales tax, etc., have a direct impact on residents of Nevada, such as people like me. We are starting to be known as a state that's becoming increasingly unaffordable. Washoe County's budget 5 years ago was $783 million. The budget and revenue needed this year is $1.2 billion, an increase of roughly 35%. Instead of using these funds for infrastructure, benefiting the residents, and ongoing cost, they use these for the capital, operating, initial personal expenses, and things like the CARES campus and the HOPE project. And I just want to say personally, I am a college graduate here. I have been born and raised in Nevada, and I'm a millennial, and it is infuriating to me to hear that you're going to increase my taxes. I don't make 50 grand a year, and how are you representing people like me, and how can we afford this? And the audacity for people to say this isn't an increase, it most certainly is. Thank you.
I just want to remind people that are testifying if we can focus on the bill, but for the record, the 3.5-hour hearing for Ways and Means did include massive cuts during that time period. That was discussed in great detail. But please, if we can stick to the bill, that'd be great.
Thank you. Trista Gomez for the record, Gomez. We get it. We understand that running a state and county take money. The question becomes, how much difference in pay is an inequity? When does it become unjust for the taxpayer who is paying a benefit to realize far less than the employee realizing those benefits? And with this question, knowing that Washoe County taxpayers are at a disadvantage, particularly if they are locals or natives, is your best use of service burdening them more? An increase in property tax to the Washoe County will exacerbate an already unaffordable housing market. In the January 14th Washoe County meeting, personnel correctly pointed out that there were two markets of home buyers. Out-of-town home buyers that were largely unaffected with the high prices and taxes of home, and then local buyers who were often priced out of the market to begin with. An older home has low taxes, and the local buyers who make what we call local wages live mostly in older areas, can't afford the taxes already, and will have a much more trouble finding lending with any sort of tax increase. A 1% tax bill on a house will generally raise the payment on a house between $300 and $500. Many county residents feel that the better course of action is to control costs. This will be hard as the revenue need has already increased due to the increased spending, but there has to be a way. Spending 80% of the budget on less than 1% of the county residents, known as employees, is a gross misuse of the purse. We don't want anyone to suffer, but to raise taxes in addition to the gas tax and the sales tax and the insurance, which is already higher than other jurisdictions, to maintain what looks like a poorly managed budget is not fair or equitable. Residents have shown up to meetings over and over with concerns. The concerns were apparent, and now we're seeing the results of those decisions. This burden will fall on already heavily burdened taxpayers, and we ask you to vote no. We ask you to vote for fiscal management, equity, and fairness. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm the State Treasurer of the Independent American Party. Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy wrote an article in March of 2025, quote, home ownership is still out of reach for many buyers, and an increasing number of homeowners are severely cost burdened, spending more than half of their income on housing and utilities. As workers face more economic uncertainty, layoff anxiety, and food costs, higher housing costs can feel like the final straw. Impacts on high property taxes on families. Higher property taxes lead to higher monthly housing costs, which leads to less disposable income. Failure to pay property taxes can end up with legal problems, including foreclosure. A family may lose their investment and their financial security. Home buyers may not invest in a home because of higher property taxes, which in turn makes it harder for homeowners to sell their property. Higher property taxes make it more likely that homeowners will have less money for other essentials as savings, education, and health care. Let's not forget the seniors. Higher property taxes put a lot of seniors in a bind. They do without essentials so they can stay in the homes they spent their lifetime in, raising their families and thinking they will have some security in their older years. This bill is not a good fit for families or seniors who want to keep their family homes. Please vote no. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Backus, committee members. My name is Jim DeGraffenreid, Jimdegraffenreid. I am Nevada's Republican National Committeeman, here today in opposition to AJR 1. Our platform states that we support lower taxes and fees and a reduction in the scope of government at all levels, and it also says that we support a simple and fair tax code. AJR 1 fails on both counts. Although it's been stated that AJR 1 is not a tax increase, it's clear that more tax will be collected and Nevada families will pay more. as a result of this bill. That's only logical given that the basis of the tax is being increased. Support testimony from various government agencies, recipients of government funding, further reinforced this view as supporters indicated that the bill was needed in order to increase state spending on a wide variety of programs and non-governmental organizations. However, as taxpayers, we do not agree that Nevada has a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. Regardless of anyone's favored program, enshrining tax increases in the Constitution is not appropriate. It requires many years, as you know, to make a constitutional change, and mandates in the Constitution tie the hands of the legislature to respond to current needs. In terms of fairness, the Nevada Constitution requires a uniform and equal rate of assessment and taxation of property. AJR 1 violates the principle of equal taxation by penalizing Nevadans such as young families trying to buy a home. Even if they buy an older home, it's taxed as though it were a brand new home, placing home buyers on an equal footing with those who have been in their homes for many years. We oppose constitutional tax increases, we oppose unfair taxation, and we urge you to reject AJR 1. Thank you.
Dana Engelkirk. I would like to ditto and say I'm also strongly opposed to AJR 1.
Penny Brock for the record from Reno, Nevada. I oppose this bill on behalf of voters in Washoe County. We're very concerned because we have a population of 480,000. The average for a county of our size, 500,000, I researched this 2 years ago. The average is 500 million. Yet Washoe County budget is 1.2 billion and they have a deficit. There is a problem. It's not that they're not getting enough money, but it's the way they're spending it. They keep hiring more and more employees and giving them raises while people on fixed income and families are struggling. They're putting their groceries on credit cards. It was announced this week on one of the business channels that Nevada is #1 in unemployment. The average earned in Washoe County is $60,000. County employees are paid more than the citizens paying the tax bills. In November of 24, we had a library tax on our ballot, and it was defeated. The people said no. They can't afford more taxes. The good news is on Tuesday, March 25th, President Trump signed an executive order to preserve and protect American elections. There's going to be a bill introduced in Congress to codify this. I believe that if this goes to the vote of the people, it will be defeated because we will have fair, honest, and transparent and secure elections. Our county commissioner, Alexis Hill, said that they've been a good guardian of the taxpayers' money. Well, I go to the county commission meetings and I sit there meeting after meeting, listening to what they're approving to spend our money on. For example, they passed $500 million to move 7 Magic Mountains from Las Vegas to Reno. What is 7 Magic Mountains? It's 7 rock structures piled one on top of the other. I'm sorry, but in Washoe County, we've got rocks that we could stack on each other, and yet this is how they spend our money. $500 million to move those silly rocks. It's outrageous. I would encourage you to vote no and have the cities and counties be more responsible with the money we're giving them, which is enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Las Vegas. Las Vegas, is there anyone wishing to give testimony in opposition to AJR 1? Okay, we'll go to the phone lines. AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in opposition of AJR 1?
To testify in opposition to AJR 1, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, everyone. My name is CYRUSHOJJATY. We appreciate that the issue of property taxes is brought forward. I'm in opposition because I feel, I could be wrong, that this is a tax increase. And here's the thing. There are some good intentions, but my concern is, where will it end? We instituted the commerce tax about 10 years ago. We put a tax on marijuana. We put a tax on mining. We've increased sales taxes. So where is this going to end? Now, the thing with property taxes, it could backfire because it will bring downward pressure on home prices. So that will kind of offset the tax revenue that's actually collected. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I've seen in other states. I would support this bill if the sales tax, which is a regressive tax, and I agree, would be reduced 2% across the board, or depending on how much the property tax thing goes up. I do support reforming property taxes, but I do believe that if you're a senior citizen, if you take care of your house, if your home is fully paid off, you should get property tax reductions or perhaps no property tax, because then you have true private property. And I also prefer if property taxes are replaced with land value taxes. There's a lot of reforms that can be done. I appreciate the Assemblywoman bringing it forward, and I look forward to working with her. But other than that, thank you so much, and I think you're doing this meeting very well, unlike the other one. Thank you. Great pleasure.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in opposition to AJR 1, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, Chair. This is Dora Martinez, and we oppose this bill. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Chair, we have no more callers to testify in opposition.
Thank you so much. We'll come to Carson City for testimony in the neutral to AJR 1. Please go ahead when you're ready. And then I believe there's someone in thank you so much, Las Vegas.
Evening, Chair Backus and Assembly members. For the record, Chris Sarmer, President of the Nevada Assessors Association, and our Legislative Chair. With me today is our Vice President, Jana Seddon, who can introduce herself. First, I want to acknowledge that I was able to meet with Assembly Member Anderson in regards to this bill, and just wish to say thank you for that opportunity. Second, some clarity on the current system. The handcuffs, right, on property tax are fourfold. Perhaps by design, perhaps not, but the modified cost approach is one of them. That's what depreciation is used on. The assessed rate of 35%, that's set in statute. The tax cap, the 3%, the 8%, you've heard that. The maximum limit of the tax rate set is at 3.64%. So there are a lot of different variables that can be looked at when looking at revenues that are tied to the property tax. As assessors, we are administrators of the law, and today we are testifying from a neutral position with concerns. We understand that this potential constitutional change will require the vote from the people. We understand that expenses are climbing faster than revenues in a lot of cases in local jurisdictions. Again, as administrators who may be implementing the new mandates with this bill, it'll be our office that will be answering to the public and the request for clarity. So here we are today. In Nevada, as you've heard, we are a modified cost approach to value. Happy to walk through that with you if you want. In recent years, it's been labeled as a bifurcated system, right? I think the term was first deployed in 2015 with SGR 14, which this bill obviously mirrors. However, with the tax cap, the 3%, 8%, that was initiated and deployed in 2005, it's our system that became a trifurcated one. And now before you today, under this bill, the system becomes more complex and would become a quadrificated system. I say this because as sales and transfers occur, we will be valuing a subset of properties through the historical application of depreciation and abatement, and in another subset of properties, we will be removing the depreciation and abatement and doing that separately. So without a doubt, we're going to absolutely need to expand our staff in order to administrate this provision. So I ask that if this bill moves forward and with the vote of the people, that doesn't go without consideration for the funding that our office is going to need to do that. I also want to add that the depreciation is a fundamental aspect of appraisal. It exists both in theory and in application, especially in the cost approach that we're mandated to do. It's a real thing. To remove depreciation and ignore it in our valuation it's just simply not standard practice. The inequities have been brought forward today. They certainly do exist. This example up here is one of those examples. Right now, however, those inequities, they exist in a sub-market basis, right? An older neighborhood versus a new neighborhood. This bill, I do believe, will take inequities to neighbors across the street with across the street from another. Maybe it's the same house, tract neighborhood, same model floor plan, same upgrades. One house sells, it's there for 10 years, the other one doesn't. One has higher taxes now, right? So I think the inequities are going to be smaller for sure, but they're still going to, that inequity is going to transfer to neighbors across the street. Let's see, what else do we have here? So the unintended consequences, I think some of that's been brought up today. Obviously, we saw what happened with low interest rates, right? Everybody got locked in a low interest rate, and now nobody's moving, right? The inventory's locked up. So I think
Sir,
with...
I just want to clarify. I know
sorry.
you're kind of testifying. You came up in neutral, but this appears to be like opposition testimony.
We are in a neutral position because we are administrators to the law, right? We do recognize that this is a vote to the people, so we're just here to provide some of our concerns with it. I know it seems like that maybe it is an opposition, but we're not. We're just administrators of the law.
Okay,
And so,
if you can just wrap it up though,
Okay.
just so I can keep time going.
Can I just talk about the abatement, right? So the abatement is a real thing that I think that I hope that every one of you look at. I think that in 2005 when it was implemented, its intent was to keep people from being taxed out of their properties. But once that person leaves the home, that abatement is still tied to that home. And so when we had a recession that took place, the unintended consequence of that bill capped in values on properties that were significantly low. And so I believe that as a reset of ownership, that there's a reset of hardship, and maybe there's a reset of abatement that could be looked at. And so, Jana?
Good afternoon, Chair Backus and members of the committee. My name is Jana Seddon, Story County Assessor and Vice President of Nevada Assessors Association. Yeah, that's who it is. As a continuation of the concerns of Assessor Sarman, I was going to speak on Section 12 of this bill, but it has been removed and stole all my thunder. Though we had concerns with the language of this section, it does sadden us to see it being removed in its entirety. It is our hope that some sort of refund or rebate or whatever you want to call it for our seniors and disabled persons can be put back into place. It's been a very long time since we have had any sort of rebate or anything for our seniors. I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go to Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. For the record, Becky Dutro, Nevada Taxpayers Association. We've had an opportunity to have a good conversation with the bill sponsor and thank her for bringing the bill forward. The Nevada Taxpayers Association is neutral on this bill. However, we encourage you to consider the guiding principles for effective tax policy. The amended language, which removes the property tax refund program from the bill, aligns with these principles by preventing the narrowing of tax base or reducing revenues collection through refunds to a particular group of taxpayers. Additionally, we want to remind this body that taxes should be fair and equitable, which is what the language of AJR 1 seeks to achieve by resetting depreciation and property tax abatement upon the sale of real property. Looking ahead, we urge both the current and future legislators to ensure that if AJR 1 is approved by the legislature and voters, any definitions and exemptions related to the reset upon sale and transfer of property are clearly outlined. This clarity is essential to prevent confusion about what qualifies as an exemption for reset. Moreover, tax policy should be administered through straightforward, easy to understand measures that account for the context of arm's length transactions, thereby safeguarding against unintended consequences.
Thank you so much. AVH, do we have anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in the neutral to AJR 1?
Chair, the public lines are open and working, but we have no callers to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and invite our bill sponsors up for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee, for this opportunity to, first of all, have the hearing. I knew it would be long. I didn't know how long it would be. Sorry about that. But I just want to just clearly say just two small things. First, we continue to have a shrinking tax base because property values will continue to be depreciated until we let the voters decide. What happens in city and county governments and how they utilize their budget, that is a different discussion for a different body. That is not for us to make that decision about. What is the decision that I'm asking you to make for today is to take a look at the language that we have presented. We believe it is fair and equitable for all, and asking for your support. Thank you again for this opportunity. Did you want to add anything else? Oh, by the way, this was Assemblymember Natha Anderson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I would be remiss to not add to your record the clarity that, oh, that is right, I am Dylan Shaver. I would be remiss not to clarify on your record that the Washoe County did not, in fact, spend $500 million to relocate an art installation from southern to northern Nevada. The real figures were about 1/1000th of that. Nevertheless, we do appreciate the opportunity to present today and help take a step forward to solving some of these really challenging problems that have grown over the years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And for the record, it only went 1 hour, 15 minutes, so we're doing good because I was trying to keep them at 1 hour. So it may have felt long, but we're doing good. We just only have 2 more hearings this evening. So I thank you so much. Next, we're going to call Assembly Bill 362. I'll give Vice Chair Considine some time to make her way down to the podium to do her bill presentation. Before she starts, I just want to formally make sure I closed the hearing on AJR1, so we could go ahead and open up the hearing on AB 362. So go ahead and begin when you're ready. Oh, and I know we have someone, oh good, they've already dialed it up, someone on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair Backus and members of the committee. I am Venetia Considine. I have the honor of representing Assembly District 18 in Clark County, and I will be presenting Assembly Bill 362, which provides for taxes on the sale of or transfer of a controlling interest in an entity which possesses an interest in real property. With me today via Zoom is Don Griswold from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, and he is an expert in this area. I just want to take a quick moment that this is my 3rd session on revenue, and there is a lot to learn in revenue, but I have sort of 3 big takeaways. One is learning that before every legislative session, the Economic Forum determines the budget, and the governor drafts his budget utilizing every dollar. When we see the bills during the legislature with abatements, appropriation requests, and tax exemptions, each of those bills is really asking to take money out of the budget. They are bills sort of requesting or resulting in negative revenue. Then the Economic Forum meets again in May, and we have the real budget numbers that we have to work with. If the forum estimates are lower than the prior forum estimates, we have to cut. I remember the Great Recession and the cuts that were done to keep our state functioning. And I watched the Ways and Means Committee earlier this week, and I know that was already mentioned, so I won't go into that. But my 3rd takeaway is I think it's about time to talk about investing in our state, in our structure. And this is what AB 362 does. Now, I don't think anyone is violating the current law. I think that there is a loophole in the law. When there are transfers that take place and the real property transfer tax is not paid, that is a real hit to our school districts, to our affordable housing, and to all Nevadans. Before I walk through this bill, I'd like to briefly outline the issue it seeks to address. As you know, existing law provides for real property transfer taxes, which are levied on the value of real property transferred from one party to another, where the value of the transfer exceeds $100. The proceeds from these taxes are deposited into multiple accounts that fund critical needs for our state, including the account for affordable housing and Clark County School District's funds for capital projects. However, as the law currently stands, a loophole exists that allows a party seeking to sell a property without incurring the real property transfer tax. Specifically, a seller can create a subsidiary or other holding entity and transfer the property into that subsidiary. The buyer can then acquire that subsidiary, thereby acquiring the property, rather than directly purchasing the property and paying the real property transfer tax. In doing this, they avoid having to pay the real property transfer tax. Again, this is not an illegal maneuver, but rather a loophole that exists in our current tax structure. Unfortunately, that loophole is coming at a significant cost to the state. One estimate projected that at least $27.5 billion worth of transactions have occurred since 2007 in southern Nevada, with the majority on or near the Strip, with no publicly reported transfer taxes. Please keep that figure in mind. It's $27.5 billion worth of transactions. And keep it in mind as you consider where the transfer taxes for such transactions would go. This is money that could be directed towards affordable housing projects, which our state desperately needs, or towards school renovations for our children. Such revenue is critical to Nevada and is therefore necessary that we close this loophole. Broadly speaking, with AB 362, I seek to close this loophole by imposing a tax on the transfer of the controlling interest of certain property. By focusing on the entity that controls the property rather than just on the property itself, we can address this issue that has already cost our state so much. I'd now like to walk through sections of the bill. I'd like to begin with Section 8, which imposes, because before that's a lot of definitions. With Section 8, which imposes taxes on the sale or transfer of a controlling interest in an entity that possesses, directly or indirectly, an interest in real property in this state at a value exceeding $100. These taxes are imposed at the same rate as the existing real property transfer taxes, and they must be computed based on the value of the entity's interest in the real property, which corresponds to the estimated fair market value of the real property. Section 9 requires the person who conveys a controlling interest in an entity subject to the tax to file a return and remit the tax on or before the last day of the month immediately following the month in which the sale or transfer was made. The return must include certain information. Section 10 outlines conditions for extending the payment of the tax. Section 11 outlines provisions concerning the tax deposits and requires the state controller to dispose of those taxes, interest, and penalties in the same manner as the corresponding real property transfer taxes already do. Section 12 outlines certain exemptions to the taxes imposed in Section 8. Sections 5 through 7 and 13 through 22 outline various administration and enforcement provisions relating to the taxes, including record keeping, erroneously paid taxes, and claims regarding these taxes. Section 23 makes it a misdemeanor to willfully, falsely declare the estimated fair market value of real property on a return. Section 25 outlines allocations for money received by the Division of Plant Health and Compliance within the State Department of Agriculture. And I also want to bring to your attention a proposed conceptual amendment that you should have in front of you. The amendments make several changes, starting with subsection 4 of Section 8, subsection 4 of Section 8, specifying that the value of an entity's interest in real property is the estimated fair market value of the real property if the entity possesses, directly or indirectly, the controlling interest in the real property. It removes provisions in subsection 4B of Section 4 concerning provisions less than the entire interest in the real property. Next, it amends subsection 5 of Section 8 to expand upon a taxable sale or transaction that occurs in a series of related transactions in order to specify that the transaction must occur within a 24-month period rather than the 6-month period. Additionally, subsection 6 of Section 8 of the amendment clarifies provisions relating to multiple sellers acting in concert. The amendment also adds a 25% penalty on entities that do not self-report accurately. Furthermore, the amendment provides that the counties, rather than the Department of Taxation, are responsible for certain duties outlined in sections 9 through 11, 13 through 22, and 24. The intent is for the transfer to be paid to the counties as existing property tax transfer taxes currently are, and for the county to receive a 2% of all taxes, interest, and penalties collected on these transfers during the preceding quarter as compensation for the next 5 years to allow the counties to adjust as necessary. And finally, it does define controlling interest and changes the effective date of the bill. I know that was a quick run through of this bill and the amendment, but I know we've been here for a while, and I really want to include sort of the expert on here, Don Griswold, if he wants to take the presentation from here.
Thanks, Vice Chair Considine, Chair Backus, members of the committee. I'm Don Griswold, Griswold, formerly Berkshire Hathaway's Executive Tax Council in Omaha. And before that, I was leader of a 600-person state tax minimization group where we exploited legal loopholes to help powerful corporations avoid hundreds of millions of dollars from states around the country. But now I'm a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. It's a nonpartisan think tank focused on reducing inequality with efficient, effective, and fiscally responsive budget and tax policies. The focus of my work here is to help policymakers understand how various policies do or don't make the rich and powerful pay their fair share. AB 362 makes the rich and powerful pay their fair share. So let's talk about how it does this. As this committee knows, the law of Nevada, like some other states and cities, has a notorious tax loophole that still allows wealthy individuals and powerful corporations to entirely avoid your real property transfer tax, while hardworking families pay full freight when they sell their houses. So thank you, Vice Chair Considine, for inviting me to speak with the committee here about this drop kick loophole. We'll also talk a bit about how a previous attempt to close the loophole didn't do the whole job, and how AB 362 closes that loophole completely. So to illustrate the problem, I'm going to take you back 40 years ago to the iconic New York City office tower that sits on top of Grand Central Station. 40 years ago, Pan Am Airlines owned that office tower and planned to sell it to MetLife Insurance Company for a record-setting price. But neither of those powerful companies wanted the sale to incur the $400 million real property transfer tax in New York City. So they went out and got some high-priced advice from lawyers and accountants, enablers who, like former me, developed perfectly legal strategies for dodging their taxes and were certainly not expected by the lawmakers when they adopted them. And these high-priced enablers dreamed up the drop kick. So at that time, New York City's transfer tax applied only to direct sales of real property from seller to buyer. Sound familiar, I think, to you? Well, the advisors said, let's see if we can disguise our sale as something else that won't be taxable. So here's what we're going to do. Pan Am, go find an empty shell company in your organizational chart, your org chart somewhere, or create a new one if you want. It's easy, just a little bit of paperwork. Next, transfer that office tower of yours down to that shell company subsidiary. And we call this transfer from a parent company down to a subsidiary a drop. Now, MetLife, you still want that office tower, right? So we're going to have Pan Am just sell that new shell company to MetLife. There's nothing in that company but the office tower. Otherwise it's empty. That's all it owns. So when Pan Am sells that shell company with the real estate stuffed in it to MetLife, we call that step two, we call it the kick. You're kicking the office tower over because it's in this company. So, and by the way, the purchase price for the stock in that shell company, Well, you know what it is. It's going to be exactly the same as the agreed sales price for the office tower. So what does this accomplish? MetLife asks. We've acquired the office tower and we can dissolve the shell company. It only exists on paper anyway, anytime. So how did that avoid the tax? Well, the advisors tell you, look, that's the beauty of the drop kick strategy. New York City's transfer tax, and remember, we're talking about New York City's because it's exactly what Nevada had before a recent amendment. New York City's transfer tax applies only when you're making a direct sale of the office tower. And here we've used a technical trick to disguise that sale as an indirect sale of the tower. We've made it a sale of stock. The office tower gets transferred, but it's never mentioned in the paperwork documentation, so the transfer tax doesn't apply. Now, this was hugely embarrassing for New York City. Took them less than a year to shut down the dropkick loophole. Their excellent solution, tax the kick. Step 2. Property goes down, that's the drop. Step 2, it's the kick of the stock. Tax the kick. This is the key design consideration for this loophole closer that your attempted fix didn't do. New York City taxed that second step where ultimate ownership of the office tower actually gets transferred from Pan Am to MetLife. So it added this element, which you have in your law currently, taxing it's a controlling interest transfer tax. So you add that to your direct real property transfer tax. Now, here's the deal though. New York City ignored that first step, the drop, and they focused on the kick. The law wasn't perfect, and we've been working with Vice Chair Considine about some tweaks that she mentioned to that 40-year-old approach. It'll make your law even better than New York's. But the essential element for New York, tax the kick, was there. Not so when Nevada was responding. You recall some news broke a few years ago about a very significant dropkick transaction on the Strip. This body took action, aiming to close the loophole, like New York did, by passing an attempted solution that unfortunately leaves the state vulnerable to avoidance. It's a different form of controlling interest transfer, and the difference makes all the difference. The original Nevada solution taxed that drop, and it did so with a narrowly tailored rule. Folks, tax avoiders love narrowly tailored rules. If you want to end abuse of any kind, try to make it broad. But it was very narrowly tailored, and it said tax the drop, and only if that drop is to an entity, that shellco we were talking about, an entity formed for the purpose of evading tax on transfers of real property. Sounds pretty good, right? Except, oh my God, this isn't even a bump in the road for tax avoiders. First of all, whenever you have a purpose element, that means the government has to prove intent to avoid the tax. That's very difficult to do. The big players will litigate this all the time. It will take you years of expensive litigation, and you may or may not win. Anything with an anti-abuse rule with a purpose element in it, you got to do something about that. So that was one big problem. Another is and this is why the drop is just never something you want to tax. The drop is very easy to manipulate around a rule. Shell companies that we're talking about here, I like to talk about aging them like fine wine. They exist only on paper. So all your big companies now are going to have dozens, if not hundreds, of paper companies just sitting in a file cabinet or on a laptop somewhere, ready to be used. And they've been created years ago. So you pull one out for a drop kick. It certainly was not formed for the purpose of evading this tax, because it was done long ago. So that's going to avoid it. Another way, if you want to do this, you can actually put the real estate in an existing company that operates stores or manufacturing plants or mining facilities or whatever it is. And then just drain the rest of the operations out, leaving that old historic company with just the property. You spin up the, we'll call it new other stuff company up and away, and then you can kick that old company that owns nothing now but the real estate now, right? And another piece is too, and Vice Chair Considine mentioned this, the old statute is limited to evasion, and evasion is criminal. That's non-compliance with the law. This is not criminal, it's perfectly legal. The distinction between tax evasion, criminal, and tax avoidance, lawful, is essential, and it trips up this piece of the statute as well. So, what AB 362 does is the complete solution. It taxes the kick. That's that tax that you've already got the tax on direct sales of real property, right? That's your historic law. Now your controlling interest transfer tax is going to be on sales of disguised sales, indirect sales of real property. It's that step when the property transfers from seller to buyer. And only the kick moves the property from buyer to seller. The drop, you recall, just moves it from part of the seller to another part of the seller. Tax the kick. So that's what AB 362 does. That's why it's really good policy. It's strong fiscal policy. And if appropriate, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Venetia Considine for the record. Thank you so much for that. I just want to reference the bill that he was talking about 2 years ago. That was the first attempt to close this loophole was AB 448. And same idea, same basis was to just close a loophole so that fairness goes between everyone with the real property tax. That bill was passed unanimously by the Assembly. It was passed by the Senate, and it was signed by the current governor. At this point, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you both, Mr. Griswold. Looking at your diagram, which we have the figures, figure 1 and figure 2 of the drop kick scheme, reminds me of seeing your presentation in Virginia. So thank you for being with us. I know you're on the East Coast with us in our presentation in Las Vegas this evening. With that, let me see. I know one of our members, you answered one of his questions. We'll go ahead and start with Assemblymember Gallant.
Sorry, thank you. I know it's been a long night and we still have one more bill. So I just want to make sure I have this conceptually in my head, if you don't mind. So this will not affect quick claims, right? Like, so owners that are putting things in LLCs or trusts that own that particular, that's not going to affect that transaction, correct?
Venetia Considine for the record. Section 12 shows that taxes imposed by Section 8 of this Act do not apply to a transfer, and then it lists, and it includes on that list the United States, any territory, state, agency, department, between former spouses in compliance of a decree of divorce, to or from a trust without consideration. So if a quick claim, let's see, and then this is a mining thing, into a corporation or other business organization if the person making the transfer owns 100%. So it does have between spouses, but that's in the compliance of a divorce. I'm going to ask Mr. Griswold if he knows if it sounds like it should, but if it exempts a quick claim deed.
I'm going to exercise caution and not comment because I haven't analyzed it before.
Venetia, that was done. Griswold, for the record, Venetia Considine for the record, I will get you that answer.
So if we could find out, that would be great. Can I ask it? Sorry. Okay, thank you. So last session, we know these hedge funds buying up the residential properties are an issue. Is this in an effort to try to address that issue, like in a roundabout way maybe? And if so, do we, like the Department of Taxation, have the resources and the authority to enforce this?
Venetia Considine for the record. Thank you, Assembly Member and Chair, if it's okay to go direct. Assembly Member Gallant. The goal is to just close this loophole that has been there to begin with, and we want to do it in the most responsible way possible and something that has been experienced and done in other states. And what was the second part of that question?
if the Department of
Oh, thank
Taxation,
you.
if we have the resources and the authority to be able to enforce this.
Thank you, Venetia Constein, for the record. Thank you for reminding me of that piece. So initially, when this bill came out, it put all of the responsibility in the Department of Taxation, which is not how the ideal way to work. The ideal way to work is we have a real property tax system that already works, and this should just go in that system. There is no discretion required in this by the assessors or the recorder's office, because the idea is we rely on the controlling interest self-reporting when those interests change, and then it being based on that information. So there would be another form that would be required to go to the recorder's office attached to a form that you already send in with that information, and then it would just be based on that. There is a penalty in here, a 25% penalty for failure to report the controlling interest accurately, but that is what it is in the paper. There is no one at this point designated to take care of that.
Thank you so much. We will go to Assemblymember De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair Considine and Mr. Griswold for a very informative presentation. So I know you mentioned some of the numbers during your presentation, that something to the tune of $27 billion that the state had lost in revenue because of this loophole that's in existence. Maybe this could be a question for our staff here. But what would be the probable revenue that we would bring in if this measure passed on an annual basis moving forward? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember De Silva. Venetia Considine, for the record. The number was $27.5 billion in transactions. So not revenue, not the tax. So I just want to be clear on that. But yes, if I could phone a friend that might be able to answer that. I don't know if we have that answer because this loophole hasn't been closed yet. I imagine there would be peaks and valleys. I don't know if there would be a consistent annual revenue stream, but I'm not sure if the fiscal wanted to answer that.
We'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Nakamoto, but I'm not sure if he has a response. We'll see.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. I believe Assemblymember Considine answered the question very well. The amount of revenue that would be generated would, of course, depend on the number of transactions that would be filed if this bill were to pass and the tax were to be enacted. Your staff, our office, has not done any analysis or any estimates on this. It is something that we would have to consider, though, if this bill were to pass, because then we would have to adjust the forecasts for the Economic Forum and so forth.
Thank you so much. Assembly members, do we have any other questions for our vice chair or her co-presenter? I don't think we do. Oh, I'm so sorry. Always in front of me. Go ahead, Assembly Member Flanagan.
It's not a tough question, but thank you, Madam Chair. So real property tax transfers, as I know, are usually documents taken by recorders' offices. I hate to use the same words twice. So documents taken by recorders' offices. Any feedback from them on the workload increase or how it affects budgets? I guess it's kind of like with Assemblymember De Silva's question about the projections on budgets, but there are intake formulas in recorders' offices. So this would affect how the dollars come into recorders' offices, and then also how it affects county budgets. Not just the state, because real property transfer tax dollars, I guess I'm wondering, do they come back to the state general fund? Do they go to the county general fund? Because that's the question. That's a good question.
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Flanagan. Venetia Considine, for the record. This bill dropped and then got scheduled real fast, but I did reach out initially, met with the Department of Taxation, met with Mr. Griswold and spoke with him a few times, determined that it should just be in the same stream as the regular property taxes go, so it would be at the county level. I have met with the county recorders once. I want to continue meeting with them, but in the bill, because the idea is it just goes into the stream. And again, as I said earlier, we're relying on the controlling interest to file those documents. So we're not putting any additional more than additional documents. We're trying not to go beyond that. But with the bill in drafting, also including an increase in the percentage that the recorders would be getting for 5 years to ensure that if there are any changes that need to be done, including a new document or training or anything like that, that they have the funding to do that. The idea here is to close a loophole. Nothing illegal is being done, but it is a loophole, and we're in a situation where we should be having these sort of grown-up conversations about where we are as a state structurally, and bringing people to the table and trying to not cause more workloads on folks that are already overworked.
Thank you so much for that, Vice Chair. With that, we'll go ahead and open up the hearing now for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 362. We'll go ahead and start here in Carson City.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. My name is Robert Munson with the Nevada State Education Association, which has been the voice of Nevada educators for 125 years in all 17 counties. And SEA supports AB 362 in order to assess the real estate transfer tax when there is a change in controlling interest in an entity that owns real property. AB 362 ensures property-related transactions are taxed equitably. Currently, corporations can avoid paying transfer taxes by structuring transactions through entity transfers instead of direct property sales. The larger the real estate transaction, the more the incentive there is for companies to practice this type of tax avoidance. This is unfair to entities who sell property through the normal process, and it disadvantages individuals and small businesses. AB 362 will mean greater revenue generation. This revenue helps support affordable housing, school construction, and local and state budgets. At least 16 states and the District of Columbia charge a real estate transfer tax on transfers of interest in entities holding real property. Please support AB 362 to increase our much-needed revenue while ensuring corporate accountability and fairness in our taxation system. Thank you.
Kaylin Cardavani, Kaylyn Kardavani, on behalf of New Day, Nevada. AB 362 generates new revenue without hurting working families, instead ensuring corporations contribute what they owe. As an organization fighting for economic justice in working families, we support this sustainable revenue source. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good evening, even. My name is Sarah Adler with Silver State Government Relations, today representing NAMI, that's the National Alliance on Mental Illness Nevada. It is critically important that the real property transfer tax is about the only consistent funding source for the account for affordable housing in Nevada. Last session, I brought SB 68, which was a bill that would have, silly me, I tried to slightly increase the real property transfer tax, and then I tried to just get a portion of the existing tax in order to provide a sustainable revenue stream to support supportive housing. Supportive housing, without supportive housing, the Strip, the downtowns in all of our communities, the homeless camp in Elko are inundated with people without housing who are not that pleasant to be around. The benefit of closing this loophole is that revenue will be generated to make the Strip and our downtowns more pleasant places to be. To your question, Assemblyman De Silva, 2 years ago I knew what income was expected in the account for affordable housing, but it had been declining over the last several years because of the vigor with which this loophole has been used. So NAMI urges your support. Thank you, and appreciates the sponsor for keeping at this and Mr. Griswold, you're pretty fun.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead to Las Vegas. Thank you, folks in Las Vegas, for already sitting and being ready to go. So we'll go ahead and take testimony in support of Assembly Bill 362 from Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lily Martinez, Lily Martinez, and I am the Economic Justice Organizer at Make the Road Nevada. I speak today not just as an organizer, but as a home owner. When my husband and I bought our first home, we were so proud. We were working hard, saving every dollar, and doing what we were told was the right thing because of our legal status at that time. Our interest rate was 2 points higher than another buyers. We made the sacrifice anyway, knowing it would cost us more in the long run. We did it to give our family a future. So it is deeply frustrating to know that while your working families like mine pay our fair share, large corporations are finding ways around it. They use legal loopholes to avoid paying the same real estate transfer taxes that the rest of us can escape. That is not just unfair, it is discouraging. It sends the message that people like me, people who follow the rules, who sacrifice, and who pay more because of the system, we always carry more of the burden while corporations get special treatment. And while all this happens, our housing crisis grows. In Las Vegas, more than 28% of renters are paying over the half their income just to stay housed. That number tells a story of stress, instability, and families trying to hold on. AB 362 will keep change that. It does not raise taxes on everyday Nevadans and make sure corporations pay what they own, just like the rest of us. The funding from this bill will support affordable housing and the services our communities rely on. I respectfully urge you to support AB 362. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mary Wolfron, and I am a proud lead organizer with Make the Road Nevada. I work directly with people that are trying to survive on low wages, keep their homes, and give their kids a better life. I've met people who work full-time, even overtime, and they still cannot afford a safety place to live. Some are teachers, some are housekeepers, some are small business owners. They are doing everything right, but the system is not right. It's not working for them. Right now, one of every 4 renters in Nevada spend more than half of their income just to keep the roof over their head. And with our state's minimum wages starting at $12 an hour, that kind of burden is simply not sustainable. People are working themselves to exhaustion and are still falling behind. They are doing everything they can, but the current taxation process keeps pushing Nevada working families down. Meanwhile, large companies that make big money of real estate avoiding taxes through a loopholes. They sell the company instead of the property and keep the tax that everyone else has to pay. AB 362 makes things fair. It does not raise taxes on Nevada families. It simply asks corporations to follow the same rules. The money for bills will help counties build more affordable housing and support people who need help the most. We need policies that reflect the reality of working people. AB 362 keep our community a better chances to stay stable and strong. Please support this bill. Thank you for listening.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Hernan Alvarez Sanchez. That's HernaNAlvarezSanchez. I've lived in Las Vegas for 22 years. I grew up in East Las Vegas and now live in Henderson. I'm the organizing director for Make the Road Nevada, and I'm here today on behalf of the working families I organize with every day. Families fighting to stay housed and raise their children amid rising costs. In East Las Vegas, I've seen families evicted after one missed rent payment. In Pahrump, I've met seniors living in their cars. In Elko and Fernley, I've heard from longtime residents losing ground as corporate developers buy up land and raise prices. These families always pay their fair share, but big corporations have found a way around that. By selling control of the companies that own property instead of the property itself, they avoid paying real estate transfer taxes that the rest of us can't escape. This bill is personal to me because I have experienced housing insecurity throughout much of my life, twice having been evicted. This represents one of the many ways the wealthy few continue to have a chokehold on resources and power, while the working class deals with wage stagnation and housing insecurity. The rules should not be different for those on the top. From March 2020 to August 2024, there were over 190,000 eviction filings in Clark County, a 21% increase from pre-pandemic levels. This year alone, there have already been more than 51,000 filings. There are over 100 families a day at risk of losing their homes. As stated before, AB 362 is simply closing a loophole that exists. It simply assures corporations are paying their fair share just like the rest of us. I urge you to support AB 362 and stand on the side of fairness, accountability, and the working people. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Maria Eugenia Prenas. I have lived here in Las Vegas for the past 23 years. I am a homeowner and I am a member of the Make Road Nevada. I live with diabetes and other health issues. I have Medicare and it does not cover everything. I am forced to decide between paying some of the medicines or paying some of my property taxes. It's painful to know that I'm doing my part, but corporations with more than me are using the legal loopholes to avoid paying the real estate taxes altogether. That money could be helping people like me. If we close these loopholes with the AB 362, the funds could go towards opening more low-cost health clinics in Las Vegas. It could expand affordable housing programs for seniors and people with disabilities. It could help fund transportation services for medical visits or create programs that cover out-of-pocket costs for people on Medicare and Medicaid. There are real changes that will impact lives and so many others. This bill does not raise taxes on families like mine. It is simple, makes the system fair. Corporations should not be allowed to skip out while we continue to struggle. AB 362 gives us hope that our community matters, that we deserve access to health and housing and stability, just like everyone else. Please, I urge you, support this bill, and thank you so much for listening.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Angeles Reyes, Angeles Reyes. I'm from Make the Road Nevada, and I support AB 362. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Azucena Jobel. I'm from Make the Road Nevada and support AB 362. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is David Rivera, and I'm support of this bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Santos Miguel. I'm from the Nevada Road and support to AB 362. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marco Rangel, Marco Rangel, and I just wanted to ditto and support through AB 362. Thanks.
Hello, Chair Backus and members of the committee. Tony Ramirez with Make the Road Nevada. I have the privilege of representing all the folks who just came up and just ditto and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll go to AVH. AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 396? I apologize, 362.
Testify in support for Assembly Bill 362. Please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Fantastic. We will come to, not that, I apologize. I did not want to make it. No disrespect to the chair, vice chair and her bill. I just was like, we're moving along. Just for the record, we did allow for about 16 minutes of testimony and support, letting it go a little longer like I did in the earlier bill. So with that, we'll come here to Carson City to take testimony in opposition. I'll probably be just as excited if it's not as long. So I'm not showing any way one way or another how I feel about the bill, but we'll go ahead and start with testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 362.
Thank you, Chair Backus and committee members, and good evening. Misty Grimmer, for the record, representing the Nevada Resort Association. We appreciate Assemblywoman Considine bringing this bill and look forward to working with her more on this in the future. The types of property transfers that our members usually engage in are not simply transfers of real property. These transfers are usually of the entire corporation or LLC, which also may be a publicly traded corporation where the stock is traded on an exchange and the entirety of the enterprise's value includes much more than just the real estate. In addition to the value of the real estate, the value includes the operations, how successful the operations are, the customer databases, which are highly valuable in the resort, hotel, casino business, the contracts, trademarks, amenities, and potentially other assets and businesses that may be owned by that corporation or LLC that operate in other states or internationally. Those out-of-state or international assets may add significant value to the enterprise and are not in the state of Nevada. These transactions require the stock or interest to be sold because it's easier to sell the whole enterprise through a stock transaction that preserves the intrinsic value of the enterprise, the licenses, contractual arrangements, leases, employees, benefits, pensions plans, investment accounts, etc. The transactions can be very large and complicated and are not just about real estate. The transfers our members are involved with are very different than a corporation or LLC that holds a parcel of land for development and the parcel of land makes up all of the value of the corporation or LLC. AB 362 would require the extraction of the real estate portion of a stock or LLC interest sale in order to pull out the fair market value of the real estate from the total deal price and can be valued separately for the purpose of paying the real property transfer tax, which can be an extremely complicated and subjective process. The current process in place for how these corporations or LLC interest transfers happen in Nevada is consistent with most other states where real property transfer tax is only imposed on transactions where a property deed changes actual ownership. That does not happen when the stock of a corporation or the interest in an LLC transfers. Obviously, that was very complicated testimony. Please don't ask me any questions.
No questions.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Paul Muratkin with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is also opposed to AB 362 regarding many of the reasons Ms. Grimmer from the Resort Association indicated. Of course, we appreciate the fact the bill sponsor did meet with the Chamber this week regarding the bill. But just quickly, though, from the Chamber perspective on the policy front, we do believe that if the 362 did pass, it could discourage investment and expansion of our businesses in this area. It could lead to higher costs for the business and consumers, and it would also put Nevada at a competitive disadvantage. So those are some of the reasons the Chamber is opposed to the bill as brought forward. And again, appreciate the committee's consideration tonight. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Carrie Kramer on behalf of NAOP here in opposition to 362 as written. We've spoken with the sponsor and we're seeking clarification on the exemptions, specifically 12.5. We have committed to providing her additional information in order to continue the conversation, and we thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Davis, today on behalf of the Interwest Energy Alliance. Interwest is a trade association of large-scale renewable energy developers in the Intermountain West. We're here today in opposition to AB 362. We want to thank the bill sponsor for meeting with us and discussing the goals of her bill. The legislation impacts transactions used frequently in the renewable energy industry. Transferring ownership interests in utility-scale solar and other renewable projects is a tool frequently used as projects develop. This would increase costs to develop a project, costs that will ultimately be borne by ratepayers. Nevada is experiencing high load growth, and adding additional costs could slow development. I will say that I have not had the chance to review the amendment, so we'll certainly take a look at that as well. But I want to thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll go to Las Vegas for testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 362.
Thank you so much. I was going to say good afternoon, but it is evening. Good evening, Chair Backus and a member of the committee. My name is Anahid Bakhshetyan. For the record, that is ANAHITBAGHSHETSYAN, and I'm a research assistant at Nevada Policy. We are today in opposition at Assembly Bill 362. Our testimony would mostly echo that of Ms. Grimmer, but I will try to make it a little simpler, so in case you want to, you can ask me questions. But we believe that the bill fundamentally mischaracterizes the sale of ownership shares in a company as equivalent to the sale of real estate. And our concerns are also with the companies and LLCs that utilize this not as a loophole. This bill would extend real property transfer taxes to securities and transactions and effectively discourage investment in the Nevada real estate sector. And ownership shares in a company, even if the company holds real estate, do not necessarily equate to direct ownership of that property. And we believe that also this regulation would be somewhat legally unsound. Furthermore, it could potentially lead to double taxation for businesses and investors because the underlying real estate remains with the same entity, yet the bill would impose a transfer tax on ownership changes within that entity, even though the title to the property never actually changes hands. This means that investors would be taxed when purchasing company shares, and then again if the company later sells the property. Such duplicative taxation creates unnecessary financial burden and disincentivizes investment. So for those reasons, we look forward to seeing the committee oppose this bill. And thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll go to the phone lines. AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 362?
To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 362, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers choosing to testify in opposition.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll come to Carson City. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give testimony in the neutral to AB 362? In Las Vegas, welcome back for testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 362.
Good evening, Chair Backus, Vice Chair Considine, and committee members. Again, for the record, Becky Dutro, Nevada Taxpayers Association. Nevada Taxpayers Association is neutral on this bill. However, we encourage you to consider the guiding principles of effective tax policy, including that taxes should be fair, equitable, and easy to understand and administer. We recommend providing clearer definitions of controlling interest and indirect sales, which we understand the proposed amendment aims to address. Tax policy can be complex, so it is crucial that taxpayers clearly understand who is subject to the tax to avoid unintended consequences, such as double taxation on properties where the real property transfer tax has already been paid by the same owner or controlling interest. Additionally, the policy should include straightforward administrative measures to ensure compliance is not overly burdensome or costly. It's recommended that the cost of tax collection be minimized for both taxpayers and the government responsible for collecting and distributing the tax, which again, we believe the amendment may address this last point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. AVH, do we have anyone on the phone lines wishing a testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 362?
To testify in neutral to Assembly Bill 362, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers choosing to testify in neutral.
Thank you so much. And this time I'll go ahead and invite Vice Chair back. I don't know if Mr. Griswold is still on Zoom, but we welcome you back for any closing remarks.
I don't know, it's pretty, oh, he is. Okay, well, I will make a brief remark and then turn it over. I just want to say that I appreciate the hearing that we had on this bill. I appreciate that things can be incredibly complicated and it might take a little while to understand them, but that doesn't mean that they are not worthy of working out and finding solutions. The bottom line is we really want to be able to provide Nevadans with what Nevadans are paying for. And Mr. Griswold, if you had any brief remarks.
I just second those fine closing remarks, Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So at this time, we can go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 362. And we are on our last bill of this evening, and I feel like we're keeping pretty good track. So thank you, everyone, for working so diligently to assist in expediting getting through this process. We will go ahead and open the hearing on Assembly Bill 307. We'll welcome our own member of Revenue, Assembly Member Gallant, to the table. And I don't know if she's I think she has some entourage too. So welcome up.
Sorry, it's been so long. I just, yeah. Anyway, Danielle Gallant for the record. We're going to make this quick tonight. Thank you so much for staying. Cannabis. I mean, what a fun topic to end the night, right? So AB 307, it really focuses on restructuring the tax structure. So the cannabis industry, particularly the cultivators, due to the tax structure, are struggling. In the most simplest terms, and I might be oversimplifying and you can correct me, is that the cultivators are required to pay a tax on this fair market value, which is at $12.96. So whether they actually sell that pound for that amount, they are being taxed on the $12.96. And then they have to pay that tax at the end of the month, whether they've actually received the money for the product. So essentially, they're having to front this tax burden for many months until the retailers issue payment for the product. So the fair market value is assessed every 3 months, so it's like a trailing indicator. And I don't know if anybody was following Zillow when they were trying to buy houses and they were using the algorithm. They used a trailing indicator and they were losing money and they had to stop buying houses. Like, it just wasn't working. So we know that they're taxing the product at this inflated price in many instances. So currently, let's see,
in 2025, and I just got this information from Ms. Hughes, thank you very much for that. The cultivators are 4.9 million in arrears in paying their taxes. And in 2024, which we did hear in a presentation earlier this year, or this session, that they were 15.4 million in arrears. So this bill is critically important for the survival of this industry. We do have a conceptual amendment. And real quick, what it does is the $5 million that is insured to go to the municipalities and be divvied up for enforcement, that will continue. The Cannabis Control Board will also continue to be funded as well. And then this bill will also, we're going to ensure that it's revenue neutral. So those are going to be the three, and all the industry stakeholders have come together and are in agreement with this. So this bill, and I'm not going to say that word, but I don't want to say it's simple. I did it. Okay. Essentially, in Section 5, it eliminates the fair market value that we were talking about, and then moves that tax from that cultivator to the actual point of sale with the retailers. And with that, I've got some really amazing people with me today that know this industry a whole lot better than I do. So I've got Aisha Goins, and then I also have Mitch Britton with Thrive, or you have CPCN Holdings. And then we also have a phone a friend with Amanda Connor. She can kind of answer some structural questions as well. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you. There you go.
My name is Aisha Goins, Aeshagoins. My part of this is really simple. I am just speaking on behalf of Amanda O'Connor as our specialist. She is neutral, but she is the most brilliant woman I know, and so she will be answering questions if you have any after Mitch. Thank you.
And my name's Mitch Britton, MITCHBRITTEN. I think I bring an interesting perspective to this. I'm both on the vertically integrated side, as well as have a substantial amount of expertise on bringing in third-party wholesale product. We see this as a huge sticking point for the industry, and happy to give our input.
Danielle Gallant for the record. Also, we had to correct the exhibit that was loaded, and so we gave you a hard copy, and then the updated one will be uploaded at some point. But thank you, Chair, and staff, for working with us on this quick last-minute change. And Danielle Gallant for the record, I think at this point, if we want to take questions, we're happy to do that and dig into it. Would you like that, Chair?
I'm happy to do that. And I'm going to start because I want to ask Mitch a question. And I'm so sorry I didn't catch your last name, even though I know you did say it for the record. Last session, AB 430 was brought to start kind of working towards addressing issues on the integrated wholesale tax, because there were stories of people paying upwards of 50% just because of what fair market value was. We were looking into having in-depth discussions last session on trying to make it neutral and go on the other side for a tax on the final sell, just to kind of make it neutral so that we could stop at the wholesale, because unlike analogy like liquor sales, where you have the middle tier who actually pays the tax right when they buy it from the wholesaler, when the bill was written, that went to the voters, that wasn't contemplated, and there was a hit on the wholesaler and not thinking that they were going to be paid at that time, or the tax would be paid, and then the wholesaler was to bear that. With that long-winded explanation of my question, leading up to my question for you is, being a retailer, do you believe, because one of the things is, and I will tell you, Assemblymember Gallant has worked really hard to keep this neutral, which will ultimately end up increasing taxes to the purchaser at the retail level, but it's to keep it neutral so that the state education fund won't lose any money. I mean, that's the big goal for our state. Do you think that you would see a decrease or any impact on sales if a purchaser at your end would see a higher tax on their bill?
Thanks for that question. So thinking about what the work that everybody put in the last session to make it so that the vertically integrated companies were still taxed on a fair market value, but the independents or the third parties, if you will, are really just collecting based on their sales price, right? We see it on both sides. So when we're transferring product from our cultivation facility to our own retail stores, which that product typically makes up about 30% of our shelves, if you will, we are seeing that we're bringing in product from third-party groups on kind of a blended average of around $800 a pound. We're taxing ourselves as a vertically integrated company at, I believe it's around $12.96 a pound. So right there kind of shows me that wholesale fair market value calculation is a little bit skewed just based on what we're paying and what the reports are telling us. Based on the analysis that we did internally, we think that with a change like this, it would bring the wholesale price down slightly, and would probably only result in what we figure about a 23-cent increase to the customer. But we feel that the variation in the tax will kind of ebb and flow a little bit more with the market, as opposed to waiting for a couple months, 3 months for that fair market value to come out, which was a big issue for those wholesalers. So we don't think that it'll have a huge impact on the customer side.
Danielle Gallant for the record. So the tax might increase a little bit, but the overall cost for the product will decrease. And so our hope is and forecast is that this will actually bring more people back to the legal market and not in the, take them away from the illicit market, because we'll be able to make the product more affordable.
Thank you so much for that. Members, does anyone have any questions regarding, we'll go to Assemblymember O'Neill.
I just have one quick question. The taxes that are currently overdue, will they be caught up and paid, or will they just be written off the books?
Or do you want to, please go
Amanda
ahead.
Connor for the record. I would defer to the director of the Department of Tax, but this bill does not write off or excuse those tax payments that are due.
Chair, if it's okay, or Danielle Gallant for the record, Chair, if it's okay, can we bring Ms. Hughes here? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Shelley Hughes for the record. Unless the bill itself said that the amount would be written off, we would still collect any existing tax liability.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And then Ms. Hughes, before you leave, I just want to congratulate you. So I understand, because at the beginning of session, we started at $15.4 million in outstanding tax obligation due. And did I hear this correctly? This went down to like $4 million since the beginning of session?
Shelley Hughes for the record. So there's two numbers. The 15.4 was for both open and closed cannabis entity accounts. So it is at 4.9 for open accounts.
So I take it, can I change that so I understand that, is about right under 11 million, actually it's under $10 million is accounts, and I'm trying to understand what a closed account means, but I'm assuming that's maybe a wholesaler who's no longer in business?
Shelley Hughes for the record, yes, that is correct.
Thank you so much. Members, does anyone else have any questions regarding AB 307? Thank you, Ms. Connor, for coming out. I know you've been a lawyer in this field for some time, and you waited all night, so we appreciate it. And I'm sorry we didn't drive really complex questions for you this evening, but we appreciate you being here. With that, I can go ahead. We're done with questions, so we can go ahead and open the hearing for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 307. We will start here in Carson City. It's like deja vu for our first person, so go right ahead.
Hello. Will Adler for the record, on behalf of GTI, Green Thumbs Industries, and we want to do a full-hearted support for AB3. What bill is this, by the way? AB 307. Gosh, what a night. But I do want to say that the changes in AB 307 are kind of a continuation of the ideas we had last year. We did codify it by reducing the wholesale tax on the seller, the third-party cannabis seller can now sell it and tax for what they sell it at. But we do have this lagging trail for the fair market value for vertically integrated sales. Again, that is just a lot of taxation law that should not be there, doesn't need to be there, in my opinion. We should have a single point of collection, a single point of reliable tax data, and that will actually let us to, have a more reliable tax for cannabis in its entirety going forward. I just want to state that GTI supports AB 307 as amended because we do also need to funnel in the funds that were pre-directed on the wholesale accounts back into education and into the redistribution where they went prior. So as amended, please support AB 307. It does clean up a lot of cannabis tax code and sort of flattens the line and makes a more reliable tax figure to rely on in the future because it's based on basically sales tax. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. Isaac Hardy, representing the Urban Consortium, which is made up of Reno, Sparks, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas. I'll keep it short. We did have a couple concerns with the bill, but we'd like to thank the bill sponsor for the proposed amendment. Seems to address those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to Las Vegas. I don't believe, there's someone there, in addition to probably our neutral person. But anyone wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 307 in Las Vegas? Okay, we'll go to the phone lines. AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in support of AB 307?
To testify in support for Assembly Bill 307, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits 745, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Caller with the last three, you may begin. Press star 9 to take your place again.
Hello?
Go ahead and please state and spell your name.
Chair, the caller muted themselves. Would you like to move forward?
Sure, and you can go on to the next caller.
Am I through yet? Hello?
You are. Please state.
The last three.
If you can go ahead and please state and spell your name for the record and go ahead and give your testimony and support.
Hello, my name is Vicki Higgins.
Spell your name.
And I would like to offer support for this bill. We look forward to the day when there's no taxes for licensed medical marijuana patients. AB 307 is a step in the right direction. We were promised in the beginning.
Caller muted themselves. Would you like to move forward?
Can you turn whatever background noise you have down while you're speaking? We're getting a lot of feedback.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
I can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, should I start over?
That'd be great. If you could spell your name too, that'd be great.
My name is Vicki Higgins, VICKIHIGGINS. I would like to offer support for this bill for Coalition for Patient Rights, that would be CPR. We're advocates for medical cannabis patients since 2010. We do support this bill, and we look forward to the day where no taxes are charged to licensed medical marijuana patients. AB 307 is a step in the right direction. We were promised by Tixie Group Bloom and others, as we assisted in creating the regs from the medical marijuana program in 2013, that we would not be charged for taxes once the rec program was in play. No other medicines are taxed. There are millions in the rainy day fund. Let's use some of it to benefit the medical marijuana patients. Please protect the patients from unnecessary fees and taxes. The numbers for patients is lower because of these fees and taxes. And this is a medical program. We need some assistance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, the public lines are open and working, but we have no more callers choosing to testify in support.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and move on to testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 307. We'll go ahead and start here in Carson City.
Good afternoon. Harrison Bohn, Harrison Bohn, from Brownstein, representing Deep Roots Harvest. We are in opposition to AB 307 because we have concerns that shifting the tax from wholesale to retail might raise the price for consumers. We feel this might drive consumers to the illicit market. I spoke with the sponsor earlier today prior to the hearing about these concerns and will continue to work with her throughout the process. However, I did say to her that if AB 307 does lower costs for consumers, we'd be happy to be proven wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David Goldwater of Pinion Public Affairs, representing Inyo Fine Cannabis Dispensary and several other independent dispensaries. I think most of the time the industry agrees on many things. One of those things is a very prolific black market that's the biggest threat to this business. Some of the things the industry where we depart from supporting each other is usually on big guy versus little guy stuff, and this happens to be one of them. Not everybody is vertically integrated. There's 6, maybe 7 or 8 dispensaries in town that are in the state that are not vertically integrated. That is, they don't own a cultivation facility or a production facility, so they can't absorb and shift the costs like some of the vertically integrated guys. It's important to kind of understand what you're doing, what this bill actually does, and it's pretty simple. You know, remember who the taxpayer and who the tax collector is under the current system. Under the current system, the wholesale tax is collected by the cultivation and production facilities, and it's paid by the dispensaries. And then that is then moved on, and then excise tax and sales tax are paid by the customers and collected by the dispensaries. This bill moves the tax from the payer, currently the dispensaries, to the customers, to the people. And that's what this does. So in theory, as Mr. Britton articulately pointed out, in theory that might lower the cost of the product that the cultivators would sell to the dispensaries. But that is just theory. That's a theory. If you're vertically integrated, it works great. Works great for those that are vertically integrated. But it's still theory for those of us who don't own cultivation facilities. The reality is this bill increases their cost at the retail level by 4.5%. That's just period, end of story. So if the price doesn't go down at the wholesale level, and even if it did go down, the only people that would profit from that are the people where you shifted the cost from. That would increase your margins, so to speak, and not be any benefit to the customers. So for those reasons, we have to be opposed to this. I don't think there is a problem to be solved here, and that is the calculation of the fair market value rate that they tax. The reason there's a problem is because people are vertically integrated, and there is no actual fair market value when you're selling to yourself. And so, yes, you have to deal with those problems, and yes, we're trying to get to a more fair way of doing that, but this is not the way. And I'm happy to stand for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for that. We'll go ahead to anyone else here in testimony in opposition. We'll go to Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 307? AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 307?
To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 307, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers choosing to testify in opposition.
Thank you so much. So we will come back to Carson City. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 307? Please make your way up.
Good evening, Chair Backus, Vice Chair Considine, and members of the committee. For the record, Jennifer Berthiaume, it's Berthiaume, Government Affairs Manager at the Nevada Association of Counties, or NACO, whose members represent all 17 counties. NACO is neutral on AB 307. As you know, a portion of the money is intended to offset the legalization of cannabis. Counties use these funds for social and human services across the state, including indigent care, rural mobile, behavioral health outreach, and services for the unhoused. We would like to thank Assemblymember Gallant for working with the local governments and presenting her amendment to restore these important funds. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Backus, members of the committee. Joanna Jacob, JACOB, on behalf of Clark County. I'll ditto my comments, or the comments from my colleague from NACO. Clark County did file a fiscal note on this, but with the amendment offered by Assemblywoman Gallant, that we have been restored, that funding has been restored, so we can remove the fiscal note as it makes its way through the process. And we want to thank the Assembly member for working with us and with the local governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We'll go back up to Las Vegas. Las Vegas, would you like to provide testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 307? Okay, we'll go to the phone lines. AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 307?
To testify in neutral to Assembly Bill 307, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers choosing to testify in neutral.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'll go ahead and invite the bill sponsor back up to the dais for any closing remarks.
Danielle Gallant, for the record, thank you. I'm going to be quick because Bendy needs to use the little girls' room. So I just want to thank everybody for working so hard. Everybody really came together to find a happy medium on this, and I just appreciate all of your time this evening. And have a wonderful night, and go get some rest, please.
Thank you so much. We can go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 307. And I'm proud to say we were able to accomplish all three bills and a work session within 3 hours, but we still have one last item on our agenda, and that is public comment. We will go ahead and start here in Carson City. We had a lot of people who hung on, so I appreciate people staying here ready to answer questions, but it doesn't look like we have anyone wishing to give public comment in Carson City. So we'll go to Las Vegas. Anyone wishing to give public comment this evening? Doesn't look like it. We'll go to the phone lines. Is there anyone, AVH, on the phone lines wishing to give public comment this evening?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cyrus Hojati. First of all, I'd like to say Happy Persian New Year. We're having a picnic celebration. I think the Persian American community matters. I'm heading down to see my family. I haven't seen any elected official talk about the Persian New Year celebration. I just have a bit of a curiosity. If you don't mind, I would just want to talk about taxes in general, if it's okay. Why has there hardly been any talks about raising the gaming tax? I'm just curious. We have the lowest gaming taxes in the nation. Frankly, what I would support is doubling the gaming tax and getting rid of all the other taxes, or we're reducing them substantially. And frankly, I think if you have a progressive economic point of view, I think you should support this. Because these wealthy corporations are going to pay their fair share. Why hasn't this brought into discussion? This is a very regressive system. And I feel sorry for a lot of the low-income people who have to pay a higher share of taxes to support the state. In fact, I'm driving down to Southern California. The tax rates for the bottom earning folks is lower than it is here in Nevada. Think about it. At Orange County, their sales taxes is less than Clark County. So I'd like to know, have we discussed about raising the gaming taxes? Heck, I'd rather use the money to give it to pay our teachers. They deserve it. But other than that, I appreciate you accepting my comments. This meeting was done a lot more effectively, and I hope you guys all have a good weekend. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Hajati, did you state your name for the record? By the way, happy Persian New Year, but did you state, can you just state your name for the record?
Thank you for responding. You made my night. CYRUSHOJJATY.
Thank you so much, AVH. We can go to the next caller.
Here, we have no more callers choosing to give public comment.
Thank you so much. With that, we can go ahead and close our hearing this evening. Thank you.